Okay, welcome to DNG 144. This is Drone Knight, the creator show here at Take on the World TV. As we continue our As in the Days of Noah study, this would be part 4, and I believe we titled it Corrupt or Corrupted, something like that. So if you don't already, this is probably going to be a little bit longer than some of the last few shorter videos I've been doing on my own. So if you don't already, grab a cup of coffee or hot tea, get situated, and get ready as we go into the more fringe portions of As in the Days of Noah.
Yahweh, he's alive. He's alive. Yahweh, look.
The king.
Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Yahweh.
Okay, so of course to join us tonight is the one and only Jeff, the noble Jeff.
Hey, shalom everybody.
From Way
Hey,
Remnant.
Ian. Yeah. How's it going, man?
I'm all right. I'm kind of hoping that we get some people that are not familiar with these topics, either live or otherwise. I'm kind of hoping we get some people that are brand new to this.
Right.
Because this is one of those topics where if I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't super excited to go into a lot of these things just because I feel like it's been done 1,000 times over.
It's been done a lot.
Yeah. But one of the things I kept getting reminded today, because there's all kinds of things, and I don't know how much you want to get into on certain things, and I don't know how much time we've got for all these things, because you and I can talk forever, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Because for every little tittle and tattle of subtopics, subsection A, part number 2 or whatever, there's like 15 different theories. And you and I are pretty well versed in a lot of these different theories. So I mean, we could sit here and talk about what we don't think and why we don't think that, or what we do think, or what could be, what might not be.
Right.
So I'm hoping we get some people that are new. So if you are new to any kind of discussions on end times connections to As in the Days of Noah that go beyond the scope of simply wickedness abounding, hearts growing cold and stuff like that, then perhaps this video is for you, because like I said, I kept getting reminded today, Jeff, that not everybody has, even though it's been done thousands of times over, not everybody has gotten into these things.
Can I give a little testimony from about, I think it was either last week, no, it was 2 weeks ago. We were here, and on Shabbat, there was a lady and her son that had come to the hotel. They I don't believe they were, I don't know if they were believers or not. And they had contacted me as the hotel manager about an issue that had come up with their reservation. And so I actually called them back. And I was working through the issue with them. And they were coming to the penitentiary for a paranormal experience. The West Virginia Penitentiary, they do paranormal tours and things like that. And then right across the street is the Grave Creek Mound, which is probably one of the tallest mounds in the U.S. And so I got to talking to her. I use that as an alleyway or an entryway to talk to her about God and talk to her about Nephilim and the mounds and the mound builders and all that stuff. And man, listen, she was soaking it up. So yeah, you and I talk about this stuff. We're like, okay, everybody's talked about this, and there's, okay, Nephilim, giants, we get it, right? But there's a lot of people that just have never heard of any of this stuff. And so Miranda and I went down there to talk with her when she arrived on that Saturday. Her and her son was a teenager, and dude, he was asking very intelligent questions, asking very interesting things from their background, and they were soaking it up. And it was things that are like, I think she even mentioned that she had been in church as a younger person and had never heard any of this. So there's a lot of people that we think that it's kind of old hat, but there's a lot of people that have never really dived into this at all. So anyway, it's gonna be a good night tonight. I'm excited about it. We have some fun things to talk about, some things that tie into today. So I'm excited about those things as well.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just start at the top here, Jeff.
Yeah.
And then if you want to interject, I don't know how much you wanted to go into with Giants and stuff like that. That was actually one of the things I didn't even think to go into, just because you and I have so many times, not together, I don't think, but I didn't even think about Giants in that sense. But there was some things I wanted to get in. So let's just start with the basic, okay? Because we have this titled corrupt, right? And so there's all kinds of forms of corruption, right? And usually when we think of corruption, typically in our society, the mind first goes to like corrupt politicians. We're talking about like making crooked moves, shady deals for personal financial gain and things like that. And that's true. That is corruption. And that's definitely part of end times. And as in the days of Noah, you can definitely lump that in there with the hearts growing cold and the wickedness of man being great in the earth and the imagination of the thoughts of the heart being only evil continually. Of course, that's going to involve self-benefit at the cost of others and things of that nature. But when I say corrupt, there's many layers I want to get into there. Okay, so after the fallen angels, the sons of God, right? We have the B'nai Elohim, right? The B'nai Elohim are mentioned having slept with the human women. Notice this says the daughters of men. It doesn't say the daughters of non-Sethites. Having slept with human women in the first 4 verses of Genesis 6. And after we are told that mankind was exceedingly wicked and every imagination of the thoughts of the mankind's hearts were continually evil. That's Genesis 6:5 for anybody who's not reading along. We read in verses 11 through 13 in chapter 6 there that the world was corrupt. And so when I'm looking at these verses, there does seem to be an emphasis of tying corrupted to violence.
Right.
Might be worth actually looking into these words a little bit, okay? So if we look at H2555, Hamas, right, for violence there, it does mean violence, but it doesn't mean just violence, okay? And so this is one of the things I wanted to bring up. You've got implication of wrong and monotony of unjust, gain, cruel, but damage is also one of the ways you interpret the word violence here. So seeing how it doesn't just mean violence as we exclusively mean it in the English, but means overall unjust gain, cruel damage, false injustice, unrighteous. It's all implicating wrong. These are all things that fall under that umbrella. When we say violent, we don't typically in the English language also mean damage that could refer to something that's not physical harm.
Right.
I mean, okay, if you have like public damage to property, you might say that person was acting violently. Right. But if we're going to start talking about hacking the DNA and gene codes, people don't think of that as a violent, movement, but you are being invasive. You are playing God and paying the price for it. And that would be damaging that which is natural. But we'll get to that to the end. Don't get stressed on me, Jeff. I'm not trying to jump ahead.
You're good, man.
I'm just trying to lay some fundamental foundational stones here for things that I want to build towards the end. Yeah, willing if we get there, because that's out of the whole topic of tonight, the thing that I really want to get into towards the end, and it's going to be a lot of speculation, but going over all the different possible connections of technology and DNA manipulation and the mark of the beast and all these things. Anyhow, so I'm hoping to get that. So I want that in the back of the mind here when we're thinking corruption and violence.
Debbie with 2 cats has a great question. So here we go. Did the fallen angels be with women, or the Nephilim be with women? Did the women have babies from it? Great question. So we the interesting thing with Genesis 6, Ian, I think you agree, is that when Moses writes that down, it's like he just does like a little snippet, almost to where like you think it's looking like everybody already knows this story, right? But we get to nowadays and no one knows the story. We read like in books like First Enoch and things like this that it was actually kind of a really known story that the fallen angels and again, fallen angels are not demons. They are just angels that have rebelled against God. They I guess, could we start there? Maybe work our way down so that maybe
I suppose we can go back there. I didn't know we were going to go all the way back there. I was moving forward with the assumption
context, just for context, let's do it.
You want to look at Jude then?
yeah, you've got Jude, you've got First Peter talking about it.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
the angels leaving their former estate.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Did they have like an estate like in Beverly Hills and they left that to somebody? No, it's talking about their how they manifested in the realm. You know, they had a type of body, I guess you will, or something like this that was able to kind of go in and out of the what we call the spirit realm, and then touch earth. And then the Bible says that they left their estate. They gave up something. That's what I get out of that.
Yeah.
You have something on that?
Well, I mean, you know, honestly, Jeff, if you and I were to really maybe spend one night preparing, I think you and I could probably do a 3-hour video on just Jude verse 6. The angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under the darkness, under the judgment of the great day. So you have them leaving their first estate. And I mean, there's a lot of onion layers to that, you know, and here's the thing about this, Jeff, you know, you say that like, it's kind of, we're given a basic snippet in Genesis 6, and that's true. But the thing is like, if you really want to get deeper into that, you can find enough of the hints in the scriptures.
Oh, yeah.
And we do see these movements of the Spirit upon the people where all of a sudden the lights are turning on and things are clicking, gears are snapping into place. And we've seen this back in the 70s, and we've seen it again recently. And it's got to be Spirit moved, because people receive the understanding on their own without even having the influence of teachers, and then they go look it up, and then they find, oh, this is along the same thoughts. I disagree on this and that and the other. But here's what I find the beauty of it is, Jeff, is you can read Genesis 6, not understand that it's talking about fallen angels, and you still don't miss the main point, the main gist. Same with Jude here. You see that it says they left their first estate, and it says left their own habitation. So your first thought is going to be physical, and that's not wrong.
Nope.
And if that's the only onion layer you get, you still get the understanding there was angels in the presence of God that left. They fell. Hence the word Nephilim. That's where we get it. It's from the fall, means fallen ones.
Yep.
And then you can connect that with the shining ones and things of that nature. But if that's all you get out of that, you still get the main gist. These were angels in the presence of God. They decided to go against God. And then that's when you start to see certain portions of Ezekiel and like Isaiah 14 and things start to make more sense when you see Hasatan, you know, wanting to be like the Most High, which is something that I really want to emphasize now. And we're because you're probably going to hear me saying this a lot, Jeff. You might get annoyed with me about this, okay? And you and I both like to repeat ourselves. But that's something that I really want to hone in, because if we do get into this whole DNA manipulation, gene coding, CRISPR technology, all that stuff, when we get to that point of the conversation, a lot of what I'm going to be suggesting as speculation, connecting dots, and looking at possibilities is going to be hinged on the understanding that Hasatan wants to be like the Most High, right? And this is something that we see in Christianity all the time. I mean, even the most lukewarms tend to say things like, well, you know, we only have one true creator, and the other one simply copies. So we all have this basic understanding of this, but when we're looking at a lot of these confusing and intricate details, I think that's something we need to keep in mind, is that he is trying to be like the Most High. And I think if we think like that, we're gonna make some more sense here. But yeah, when it says leaving their first estate, maybe if any listeners are curious about possibly trying to peel back another layer, I would suggest going to 1 Corinthians 15. And you're going to start seeing, and that's another thing that's actually really good for tonight's video, is 1 Corinthians 15, talking about the different nefesh, the different spirits for the different type of beings. And you have like of the birds and the beasts and mankind. Well, angels would have their own nefesh. They would have their own type of spirit. So when you have something that is not human, mingling with something that is human, you now have a DNA source that is not fully angel or human. So it needs to have its own body. It has to have its own form. We see this in 1 Corinthians 15. It literally says the different nefesh have different bodies, and we're given this template that Paul writes for us, so that we understand that with the new heaven on new earth also comes a new heavenly body. So for those who are worried about like cremation and you know, things like that, you know, Jeff, I don't want to get into it tonight on this, but I've had people years before I was even born again. I remember there was one guy told me, he said, well, my mom won't, you know, you have to get buried because that's the body that gets resurrected, and that's the one that you live in for eternity. And I said, what about the guy who gets pushed into the wood chipper by his wife? And Jeff, I was no theologian. I was not strong on
Right.
doctrine. I was just thinking common sense of like, no,
Yeah.
that can't be. That can't be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So if you want to peel back more layers on more depths of what it means for the angels to have left their first estate, not just being a physical situation of them leaving the heavenly realm, even though that is part of it, because we do see in Job that they do have access to some degree, you know? And I think, again, this is much like the court system. You have places where less clean individuals can go than others, and then you have the outer court, you have the inner court, and then you have the holy of holies. So, you know, to assume that these fallen angels are no longer having access to the heavenly realms, at least past this point, and you know, I would say to look at the book of Job. But yeah, 1 Corinthians 15 is going to show you some things as well.
So we've got some interesting things there, and this is where we get introduced to the whole hybrid creature type thing. Where we have the Nephilim, they were called, that's the Hebrew word in Genesis chapter 6 for giants. In the Septuagint, we have gigantos, where we get our English word for giant. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were all giants. It was some sort of hybrid creature. And getting back to Ian's point, they had a different type of nefesh. In Genesis chapter 1, when you go through the first part of creation, everything that Yah made, he made after its own kind. And so when we see this two different kinds coming together, that's not something that Yah set up. He didn't set up to have an angel human hybrid. He didn't set up to have a human horse hybrid and all these things. And what we Ian, what I see in this error, EAR era, I see the formation of all these different chimera beings, and I see that's where we see a lot of literature, historic literature, talking about some of these creatures where you have centaurs, where you've got satyrs, where you've got all these different types of beings. The book of Giants talked about how that not only these fallen angels, these fallen watchers, when they came down onto Mount Hermon, they began to take wives. And so to answer, Debbie has two cats. Yes, these fallen angels, these angels that rebelled, they somehow changed their shape, somehow did some kind of something to where they could copulate with human females, and the result of this was Nephilim, or you know, and this, it was a hybrid creation, and not only do we see that they did this, but we also have hints in the book of Giants. I'd like to bring that slide up just real quick, just so I can show people, if that's okay. I just want to show this. This is let me see. Let's see. Let's get a little bit different picture here. How about that? There we go. So this is the actual quote from the Book of Giants that we have. This is found in Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's very fragmented, but we can read some things out of this. Everything that the earth produced, this is what God was doing. And it's talking about how they're coming in, these fallen entities, these fallen Elohim, and they began to corrupt things. I think that's what Ian is wanting us to really kind of focus on, is the enemy's idea of corruption, of physically changing some things, altering things. The great fish, the sky with all that grew, the fruit of the earth, all kinds of grains, and the trees, the beasts and the reptiles, creeping things, earth, and they observed every harsh deed, utterance, the male and female among these humans. There's more to this, but this is what I wanted us to kind of look at tonight, just a little bit, is that these fallen entities, not only did they mess with the human women so that they would have these babies, right? Enoch talks about that the children would grow so fast that they would actually rip out of the mothers and consume the mothers and things like this. So, it was a very violent type of thing going on. But not only were they corrupting humans, they were also corrupting everything they could get their hands on, whether it was insects, whether it was plant life, whether it was going back and forth, creating different kinds of chimera and just experimenting around. Their main, to me, Ian, I think their main objective was to corrupt everything that God had made after its own kind. What do you think about that? Do you think that's kind of...
Well, here's the thing. When you look at the creation story, right? After each day, what does it say? That was day one. It was the evening and the night, and God saw that it was good.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at the nature of these fallen entities, these angelic beings, these heavenly entities that decided to rebel, and you consider scripture that we see in Ezekiel and Isaiah 14, and and if you want to look at Daniel and Revelation and other things like that, you get a little bit of their characteristics, as well as 2 Peter and Jude. You see that this is a very, they want to slap the Father in the face. They want to spit in his eye. Anything that is natural, they want to make unnatural. I mean, we see this with the wickedness of man as well, which isn't always necessarily influenced by these demonic beings. After man entered into the fallen state, we see a lot of times scripture tells us that it's actually the flesh itself. We tend to want to blame the enemy, and the enemy will sit there and will surely give you ideas and make opportunities. But it doesn't even always have to entice. Sometimes it's our own flesh. But when you look at these, when it says that God turned them over to a reprobate mind and things like that, and when you look at a lot of those verses, like in Romans, you'll see that Paul and other writers and other portions of scripture tend to have a mention of and went against that which is natural. Right. They were turned to a reprobate mind to do that which is not natural. You'll see this pattern. You'll see this tendency. So you have a few issues here. You have them wanting to go against what is natural, what is nature, what is God's creation. They're there to spit on the petri dish that God has created, if you will, which is maybe not the best analogy, but what have you.
I think that's a nice. I think that's a good one. Yeah.
There's a few things here. They also want to make it their own. Okay. And especially when you look at Hasatan again. Okay. Here we go. Number 2 already, Jeff. And we're not even into the first paragraph of my notes yet. But number 2, Hasatan wants to be like the Most High. He said, I will be like the Most High. Okay. So if we have the Most High creating, and you see that he makes this earth, right? No matter what shape you believe it is, right? Whether you believe it's, a spinning ball and the water's clinging to it, or if you think it's flat with a dome, or if you think it's like a donut, or all the other things in between. No matter what, we can all agree that the Father was pleased with his creation and that he made man in his image. This was representation of the Father, whom these rebellious angels have decided to flip the bird to. So they want to take over. Right. Yeah. And they want to make it their own. They want to make it in their own image. Can I?
Or they even let me interject. Or they even think that they are wiser than God and it should have been done like this. I see that tying in with today's mentality with and I'm sure we'll get to it here in a little bit where we're talking about all flesh corrupted then and now. But that's that same mentality today that we have where we're working on DNA and things like that, and we think, oh, we know everything. We can handle this. We can dig into this. We know better than God, and that is just folly to think that they can do that. But anyway, so I definitely agree with that was their purpose. They were trying to destroy things. They were trying to spit in God's eye. It's horrible, and they knew if you go back to the account of First Enoch, they knew what they were doing was wrong. Semyaza's making this pact before they do it all. He's like, hey guys, look, I'm not doing this by myself. We're all in this together. They knew it was going to be a bad deal. But yeah. Okay.
So let me, I would like to point out some things that we can see in scripture, because not everybody is going to agree on extra biblical accounts. Some see extra biblical books as scripture. Some see them as extra biblical helpful, but not canon. And some literally don't want anything to do with any of it.
True.
And I can understand the viewpoints of all these individuals. I know where I stand, and I'm more middle ground on things, but for me, I really want to see what's in Scripture, and if I can't see even a hint of it in Scripture, I'm a lot less likely to consider things that are being suggested outside. So let me just point out what I see in Scripture for a minute here.
Okay.
Let's go to Genesis 6. You go to verse 11 there. Notice it says, the earth also was corrupt. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Okay. And so we can read this and we can say, okay, it's not talking about the ground. It's talking about the world, right? The world, we're talking about mankind. Okay. Well, are we talking about just mankind though? And we go to verse 12, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. Okay. Now we have the word for man and mankind. We have Adam by now. Okay. I just want to point that out. Now it says, for all flesh has corrupted his way upon the earth. All flesh. This is not the same as Adam for just mankind.
Right.
And so then we have in verse 13, God said to Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Okay, now let me point out some things here. This is going to connect with multiple things, so please bear with me for anybody who's new to these things or feels already like it might get overwhelming. We got to consider Genesis 6:9. Okay, so we go over to Genesis 6:9, and it says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with Elohim, right? So Noah was perfect in his generations. What does that mean? Okay, so, here's the thing, Jeff. I mean, we could say, that he's upright, that he's right with God, that he's walking with God. But when we're breaking down the terminology here, if we look at that word for perfect even, that's H8549. That's tamim. Okay, and I know you know this, Jeff, but maybe not all the listeners. Tamim is not the only word that we can use for perfect if we're talking about sinless or righteous. Okay, it can be used for that context, but more often than not, it's actually used to mean complete, without blemish, full, perfect, without spot, undefiled. Okay,
Undefiled.
and so this isn't just talking about morally. It can be used for the context of morally, but it's not just talking morally. This term typically paints a whole picture of literally, figuratively, and morally. Okay, and so we have to consider these things. Okay, so if it can mean sincerely undefiled, right? And that's the one I wanted to point out there is undefiled. You got the without blemish, full, complete, without spot. And depending on what type of Bible version you use, it might you might see that in those different words. Like in the King James, you'll see it without spot more often than not. You'll see that, right? Or without blemish, like in Exodus 12:5. This is a physical and literal, not moral, in Exodus 12:5. But that says tamim. It's talking about physical. When it's talking about the unblemished lamb, we're not talking about a moral. The lamb wasn't sinless. It was foreshadowing a sinless, unblemished lamb. But this was talking about a physical, and this is the same term. Again, this is not the only word we could use for perfect if we're talking about just morally for Noah, on top of the fact that it says in his generations, but we'll get there in a second, okay? So, you're going to find that if you look up the word tamim, and you look up for like the Strong's Concordance, you're going to find that a lot of the times it's referring to the sacrifices and offerings, how they're whole without blemish. Again, this is mostly about physical attributes, mind you. But as people like Skiba would present, this is the same tamim used to describe the unblemished and without spot red heifer. Now, the interesting thing about that is that we're not just talking about in the case of the red heifer, we're not just talking physical attributes in the sense of it's not bruised and it doesn't have discoloration and it's not sick and it doesn't have a lame leg and things like that, and the things that the Levites would look for unblemished with lambs and stuff like that. But it actually goes a step further. It's often understood to mean perfect in terms of DNA as well.
Yeah.
This is the same term, okay? So it might not be fair to assume that, but I would argue if that's your argument, that it's also not fair to completely dismiss it. More often than not, tamim is talking about physical attributes rather than moral, and we do have DNA references here, okay?
Right.
So as some have in the past proposed, perhaps that in the part of the onion layers here with Noah, onion layers, okay? Mm-hmm. It wasn't just talking about his obedience and his alignment with the Father, but also his DNA having not been corrupted by the likes of mingling of seed between fallen angels and man, and whatever other kinds of DNA tinkering that may have been present at that time, right? Which would then add meaning to that in his generations part.
Well, and it also adds meaning to verse 11. The earth was also corrupt. I mean, the earth is not sinning, right? So what was going on with the earth? I mean, the earth itself was corrupt before God. So and the earth, of course, earth was filled with violence. So what's going on with those words? And I definitely think that the tie-in with the DNA aspect of it is huge. Because again, I think that these fallen entities, these fallen Elohim, wanted to come down and just wreak havoc on all of God's creation, going back to Genesis 1, where everything that he said was good, now it's not good. The whole thing with the Nephilim, Ian, that really helped me understand why God allowed genocide in Joshua. I had a hard time with that as a young believer. I'm hearing all about God is love, and God is love, and God has grace, and he's got mercy, but boy, he allowed genocide in Joshua. When you understand that this Nephilim, when they came in, they were actually creating havoc on everything that God touched, and he can't have that, because let me give you sent me a video. Are you going to get into that video at all?
I don't have slides or clips. I was sending you stuff that I was watching just to give viewpoints and thoughts and things.
Yeah, you sent me a video. Maybe it was today. I don't remember what it was. And man, it talked about, the scientist was talking about at the end of it, where the 1912, I think, influenza virus naturally will mutate. It has mutations every time it goes forward. It actually mutated itself out of existence around 1992. Fascinating. And so if you think of what the enemy was trying to do, the enemy was just literally trying to wipe out everything with these genetic mutations and hybridizations to get us to where we're not existing at all, just to spit in God's eye. I think that was a fascinating point the doctor brought out.
Yeah. And if it's, because I sent you more than one video. If it's the video I think you're talking about, it's funny because that guy talked about coronavirus a lot, and this was from 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay, so perhaps that's why we see the word flesh in verses 12 and 13 instead of Adam, right? That's one of the things I was trying to get in there. And so if we look at Genesis 6 verse 7 here, we see that beasts are listed as well as mankind.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what does man have? Okay. So I was wondering if someone's going to bring this up. It's actually in the chat, because I was thinking as well when you said, well, what about the earth being corrupted? Some might actually say it's the blood of individuals. And there is scripture to back the understanding that blood defiles the land. Right. So that is a scriptural understanding. So somebody could take that and see that as the full meaning. This is why I like to break down what the verses say, Jeff. This is why I want to show what's in scripture. Okay. Yeah. So we're looking at Genesis 6:7. If the corruption was only involving mankind and not creatures, couldn't have God have solved the issue where mankind was eliminated without doing so with the creatures as well? And the only argument I could think, because I like to do the devil's advocate is not the best coin, the best term to use here, but it gives that understanding of considering all perspectives. I like to try to consider all the perspectives, and I'm sitting there going, okay, if I was on a debate team, because I used to be very good at debate team, and I want to consider what people have to think on the other side. If I'm on the other side of this and I'm absolutely against all the things that I'm proposing, what would I say if someone says, well, why would the beast be brought up if they weren't corrupted? And the best answer I could come up with that I would have argued is that simply having too many animals would actually cause an off balance with the world. And then I would bring up Deuteronomy 7 verse 22, where it says, Yahovah, your Elohim, will put out these nations before thee little by little. You remember this verse, Jeff? Where he's talking about how he's going to bring them to the enemies, one nation at a time, so that you are not consumed all at once, lest the beast of the field increase upon you. And many understand that beast to mean actual animals, and then some believe it to mean the actual nations and the unclean individuals. Wow. So I do see how that could be a perspective. I don't have that perspective. But I could see that perspective. I want to consider all perspectives on this, because a lot of what we're going to bring up tonight, you and I have strong lines of where we stand, but I want to be able to give everybody the option for themselves to see what they think. But I'm still not personally convinced that Genesis 6:7 would be bringing up beasts, and then it says that God repents, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, repents that he had made them. He's not referring to just mankind there.
And notice another thing, just in support of what you're talking about, he doesn't mention anything that's in the oceans, nothing that swims.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So
yeah, I've thought about that too. When you start looking at the logistics of the flood and stuff like that, we didn't go into that with the series, but when you're trying to figure out how many animals do you need to have to be able to represent all the kinds for the world's population and things like that, will they fit and stuff like that? You know, one of the things you have to consider there, you know, it is, you know, how many animals would you have to be able to fit? You know what I mean? And when you start looking at those type of things, you can see that it helps that you don't have to worry about the creatures in the water, because they're not going to die from the flood. I mean, many of them would have, but you wouldn't have to preserve them on a boat. So that's helpful with that. So the question, Jeff, is what was mankind doing to and with animals that caused God to want to erase most of them? What were the fallen angels doing with the animals? And considering what Jude verse 7 says, seeing flesh can mean both, and you have strange flesh means other than human. Okay, so if anybody wants to go further on into that thing, if you start looking into Jude, connecting it with Genesis 6 and other scriptures, you know, a lot of people see that strange flesh and they assume, Jeff, that they're thinking that it's referring to a homosexual relationships, but that's not actually the phrase that's used in that context. We have plenty of verses that confront homosexuality. The Bible is not silent on sexual wickedness, no matter of what type. It is not silent on it. You know, whether you're talking about incest or bestiality or taking your brother's wife, we have all kinds of examples of what we shouldn't, you know, sexual immorality. And the phrasing of strange flesh isn't actually used in that context. And when you start looking at strange flesh, it's actually talking about that which is not human. So then when you start looking at Jude and you start looking at the phrases of strange flesh, then you can start to see, well, there is indication scripturally that it wasn't just mankind that they're messing with. And of course, this can also be tied into Daniel 2 and 7 if we get there tonight. I mean, you know, we can look, and if you want to bring up some stuff here, I'll give you a second, but let me get this out, and then you can take this, okay? Yeah. We can look into and discuss documentation. We can look up video clips, articles, etc. Anybody who takes 10 minutes out of their day, well, maybe 20 minutes would be better. You can Google or YouTube. Jeff, you can even do Facebook search. I might have you do the screen share, because I mess things up, Jeff. And have you search something on Facebook in a minute, because just even searching on Facebook, I looked it up today. I heard to do it, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable what was present there. But if you look up things like chimeras and hybrids and cloning, and I'm not suggesting that you look for the videos that look like the thumbnail or the title or the resource seems to be National Enquirer. Okay, if you're not into fringe topics, if you're not into conspiracy stuff, you're going to find that off-putting. You're going to roll your eyes, and I'm okay with that. You can roll your eyes. Yeah. I'm going to suggest that you look for the science, that the articles where they're not saying, ooh, creepypasta, we think this, we think that, but rather the videos where they go into laboratories, Jeff, when they talk about pig and all these other things that they've been doing, the human monkey mix and stuff like that, you can't dismiss that as National Enquirer. And like I said, if you're, you know, whether you want video clips or articles or documentation, chimeras, hybrids, cloning, it doesn't take very, very long to find it from the source itself, where it's not just speculation and it's not just, I heard from such and such, or I feel like God's telling me this, but outright, this is what we're doing in our laboratory today, and this is what we've been working on the last 3 years. Shoot, Jeff, I found an article back in 2011. And the UK labs, they had an article saying, okay, we admit it. The title of the article is, we admit it, we've been doing this secretly for 3 years now, and we have more than 150 animal-human hybrids in our laboratory. That was 2011. Right. And you know, and that was just one lab, Jeff. Yeah. And you know, see, you and I don't know about all the listeners, but you and I tend to understand that if they're willing to come out with it, that you can go back 30 years to when they started doing those projects. You know what I mean? But anyways, we don't have to go into all those things. We can point out things in scripture which suggests some not fully human entities. You know, I've wanted to do a video on the lion-like men of Moab and how that's not talking about them just being ferocious. You know,
Right.
there are verses that suggest not just giants. I mean, you do have the
Absolutely.
giants and then you have the Nephilim, but I mean, look at even the title Amalekite, okay, which by the way in 1 Samuel 15:3, for anybody who wants the reference, talks about destroy and kill them, and it's not just saying just the young men in the war; it's saying the women,
Right.
the children, and their cattle. That's one of those sections that you were referring to, Jeff, where you say you have this complete genocide. And this is one of the
Yeah.
ones that the atheists, they love to bring up to you, especially if you're street preaching or evangelizing.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
say, why kill not just the men, the women, and the children, but also the cows?
Right.
You know, this is your loving God that is so wonderful and holy and just, and yet he's being so evil here. Well, there's a few things. If you look into Jewish mysticism and their oral traditions and things, which I don't suggest looking into, but they suggest that Amalekites actually had the ability to shapeshift and stuff. That's neither here nor there. I'm not even trying to argue one way or the other on that. If you just look at the etymology and you look at the actual word for Amalekite, it actually can be interpreted as vampire-like demon.
Right.
That's just the name of the people, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so when
Yeah.
you have instructions by God saying wipe them all out, including their cattle, perhaps just maybe there's some DNA manipulation to where this isn't completely natural. These men aren't just human men anymore. There's something that's been toyed with that shouldn't have been.
Some of the tribes were known as night terrors. Is that the Zamzumi? You know, the also.
Yeah. What was that? Hittites?
Yeah.
I think
so. You have all kinds of crazy stuff going on with these guys. Before we get too much into that, I'd like to also bring that in, because we're talking about as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. So we've talked about just briefly, not even an hour's worth yet, but we've talked about how these fallen angels, these fallen Elohim came in and they were wanting to corrupt everything that God had created. And we see that, I think, already. We've kind of hinted around about that. We see that going on even now today. We talked about, there's articles out there about human hybrids. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. The Russians back during the Cold War, they were trying to create super soldiers. They were trying to get gorillas and mankind to create this massive new thing. We could talk about some experiments that happened on certain islands here in the United States, up around New York and New Jersey and stuff. All kinds of things going on. You know, and how much of these things, again, how much of these things are internet folklore? How much of these things are true? I don't know. Yeah. But what I do know is that we do see a concerted effort with the scientists that we have today, trying to genetically, and I want to just say that we throw around the term GMO like it's no big deal, because you hear it all the time now. Oh, it's GMO. Don't eat GMOs. GMO. Genetically, let's just think about that. What was the deal with Noah? He was perfect. He was upright. Okay, he wasn't talking. It was Tamim, and this was a physical thing. His DNA was not corrupted. And what are we seeing today? Just on steroids, our scientists think they know better than God in every area that they can touch. Whether it's messing with corn, right? It's messing with wheat. It's messing. They
want to mess with everything now.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean that's.
They want to mess with everything now. Yeah, I was trying to get there. Jeff. I was going to give you Ephron the Hittite. That was one of Skiba's favorite examples, which meant like fawn-like, and he suggested that perhaps he wasn't fully human because names do have meaning, and that's something you and I have talked about before. But we don't like you're saying here. Like we've been both kind of hinting at. You don't have to go into the strange and rare. We don't have to speculate on scriptures and see if, are we twisting things a little bit? Are we possibly adding? We don't have to just look at mythological documentation, which, I say that way for a reason, because you have like mythology, right? But not only do you have mythology, but you have ancient documentation, which indicates all kinds of things. Jeff, have you looked at like the ancient Hindu documentation where they show wars that took place in the air with planes and saucers? And they say, well, that's fantasy. But if you look at the documentation, it's just like the giants and the hieroglyphs of Egypt. It's talking about how much livestock they have for the year. And then it's showing giants carrying the stones for buildings like, megalithic structures like pyramids, which we to this day cannot make. We cannot replicate it. And we have no idea on how they actually did it. And they say, well, that's to show their importance and things of that nature. It shows them standing up the pillars and the obelisk.
Yeah,
Jeff, their obelisks were not the size of humans. Jeff, it's crazy because it's like we see, it's almost like it's been ingrained in us, in our society, that if it's written in stone or if it's made of stone, it's equated to dumb. It's antiquated. It's ancient and it's old and it's dumb. We're beyond that. As if our plastic today can hold up to the stone of back then. And that's something we're going to get into in a little bit, is how their technology was not only not so far behind us, but I would argue quite possibly far ahead of us. But we don't have to look into all the weird and strange things, Jeff.
Yeah.
We can just look at Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and look at the trends, and we can see what's the newest one right now, Jeff, that's going around. This mRNA and the so-called gene therapy of livestock, which is why I wanted to bring this up, because that's what I was ramping up to with the Amalekites, with their cattle, because we're talking about what was this corruption in Genesis 6. When you have verse 7 there, is it talking about, it says animals and beasts, and it says that he had issues with both of them.
Yeah.
So what could he have issues with? Okay, so now, were they mating with animals? Were they gene splicing the animals? Were they injecting things? Jeff, it could have been all of the above for all of the above.
All of the above.
But, I keep seeing on Facebook, I keep getting in my newsfeed, they said, join the, what's it called? Join the petition to try to get your state to be one of the ones that bans the mRNA gene therapy for livestock. And this is what becomes the meat that you buy at the grocery store. So this isn't just like giving smallpox shots to some cattle so that they don't get sick out in the fields. This becomes your food at the grocery store, Jeff.
This is mRNA, and I want to just back up a little bit with talking about mRNA, okay? Because when I first started hearing about this, it had been a few years ago.
Frankenfoods. I had to do it, Jeff. That was good.
It had been a few years ago since I was in biology, right? So I'm 50 years old, so it's been a little bit. But mRNA is what writes the DNA stuff. This mRNA is what copies and produces. So mRNA goes out and it reads the DNA thing. Okay, we need to make this cell, or we need to make this molecule, or we need to make this whatever, this compound, amino acid, whatever. We need to make something in the body. This mRNA goes to the library of the DNA, and it opens it up and looks at everything, and okay, this is what we look at. But if we are injecting this mRNA into an animal, it's actually changing that DNA. We were told countless times, trust us, this is only going to be localized. It's only going to do this. Okay, well, they're adamantly wrong. It's only going to last. It's only going to be in the body 6 weeks. Right? It's been in the people's bodies now for years, and it is changing people.
And when you change the DNA of a cow, and it has calves, Jeff.
Those calves.
It continues. This is, if you go years back and you look at the articles, Jeff, I don't know if you've looked at this, but for any of the listeners, if you go type in whether you're any kind of gene alteration, any kind of gene modification, you're going to find articles and videos and things when you start looking at the scientific community. I'm literally saying, don't look for the people like me. Look for the lab coat guys to see what they say about themselves. And look at what they're saying and see if it's all conspiracy nutso stuff. Because they'll straight up say, well, there's a moral, ethical issue in the sense of it will pass on. Once you've messed with the DNA of something, it will continue. That is now its DNA. They outright say that, Jeff.
My generation has a little bit better handle on understanding this. The generations that are younger than us, if you get a corrupted file, it just doesn't work. All right. But back in my day, we used cassette tapes, right? We had
I was around for cassette tapes, Jeff.
We had
You
our
gotta
jam
go further
boxes,
back
right?
if we're trying to go past me.
We had our jam boxes out there. We're trying to make our ultimate mixtape. So we're listening to the radio station. Yeah. And then we hit play and record, right? If you're playing and record that and your house had a little bit of a spike in electricity, or you get a little power flip, okay, you'll have, some song and it'll have a skip. That song will always have a skip. And then if you make a copy and a copy and a copy, every copy they keep degrading. And pretty soon you're just like, oh yeah, try 8-track. I'm there.
I was gonna say, there you go. See, now I wasn't around for 8-track.
I was around for 8-track. I was around there. But anyway, I'm just saying, we definitely have an understanding of every time you make a copy of something, the flaws that the new copy has is what's passed down. It's not getting back to that perfect thing. Right. And every time that we have this mRNA thrown into something, whether it's the big thing that we see throughout the internet is pork and beef. Now praise Yah that we're not eating pork, but at the same time there's all the stuff about the beef. There was an interesting article. I wanted to bring this out because I thought this was very, very cool. I'm going to pull this up real quick because there's a massive campaign. So if you go look this stuff up right now, Ian, and I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. Yeah. There's a huge propaganda war going on right now about this very issue of mRNA vaccines going into meat. If you go look up the liberal sites like Snopes and all this kind of stuff, they're going to say, "Oh no, there's nothing to it."
Yeah, of course. Snopes
this article, this article right here. I'm gonna post. I'll post it in the chat, and then we'll throw it up here if you guys want to look at it. It's from the organicprepper.com. mRNA hyphen vaccines hyphen in hyphen meat. Go check that out, guys. That's an amazing document where they go in and they actually talk about how the agenda is to create confusion on it, so people just quit messing with it. It's the same thing that they did with UFOs. It's the same thing they've done with any kind of giants or anything. They disavow it. They say you're crazy. Oh, there's nothing to that. Just move right on. Nothing to see here, guys. And that's the mentality they're trying to do with this. But we've been doing it for years. We've already been doing it.
And then years later they say, yeah, but it was worth it. That's what we're seeing now. For the last 3 years, they kept saying, no. And we called it before 3 years ago.
We did.
And now they're saying, well, okay, yeah, true. A lot of that stuff was nonsense and a lot of it was bad, but the juice is worth the squeeze. That's their thing now, Jeff. You see what I'm saying? So they, and there's no shame in their game on it either. There's not. No. And we see this pattern and this tendency all throughout. Okay, so Jeff, before we, unless you want to go more into the meat and cattle and stuff, I want to throw a curveball for the listener because this might be new for some people, especially if we have some people new to the topic. When we were talking about DNA manipulation and you have humans and animals, and we're looking at the days of Noah and stuff like that. But what about plants and vegetation, which you already kind of hinted at here? But
yeah,
having been corrupted at that time, a lot of times people will speculate and they'll point to like rare carnivorous plants in the world that we see today, like Venus flytraps. Was that one of God's creations, or was that something that was, spliced or, messed with in a way that it shouldn't have been? And Venus flytrap, by the way, is just one of many types. If you go type in carnivorous plants in the world, you're going to find there's actually multiple ones. Yeah. And before you take a little time out to search carnivorous plants and all the varying types, you can look at poisonous plants, deadly plants. Consider what we see about the earth in verses 6:11 there, Genesis 6:11, the earth, right? Okay, so you could say poisonous plants, and then you say, well, why would you bring up poisonous plants in a scriptural argument? And the best argument I would have is say, well, in Genesis 1:29 it says if it bears seeds that it's supposed to be good for you, and yet you're going to find some of these poisonous plants. There's poisonous berries. They have seeds, Jeff. So was
Yeah.
that not originally a part of the creation, but was tinkered with, messed with? I mean, some might want to argue that this is somehow connected to the cursing of the ground in Genesis 3 verses 7 to 19. You some might try to argue those things. So then it's like, okay, if you don't want to meet me on the seeds and the plants and things like that, because when we see God talking about the cursing of the ground and how it's affecting man and stuff like that, it's always about how much toil he's going to have to put in. We have thorns and things like that, which shows thorns weren't original. That wasn't part of the original creation. But it doesn't say anything about poisonous plants with seeds that you can't eat. So it makes me wonder if they were mixing things. And then, of course, you've got like an Enoch 1 and the first Enoch, right? Because the other two are outright Gnostic texts, whether or not you see the first Enoch as a pseudepigrapha or not. It does talk about root splicing and cutting.
Right.
And there's all kinds of different ways that people interpret that, right? But we don't have to look at all that. We just have to go to the grocery store. We just have to look at the GMO sticker. We just have to look at the fruits that say seedless fruit, but we know that they should have seeds in them.
They should have
seeds. And it's funny, Jeff, because this is the overall theme: seedless.
Yeah.
Right? Seedless. They want you to no longer continue in the original format. If you make fruit seedless, what does that mean, Jeff? It means it can't continue.
It can't reproduce.
Jeff.
That's the goal.
They're shutting down farms. They're shutting down fields. They're burning fields.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got people like Bill Gates buying up the field, doing who knows with it.
Right.
And then on top of that, they want to make food that doesn't produce when God made it in a way so that you
could own 100 or 1,000 acres, and you're trying to grow heirloom wheat, heirloom tomatoes, heirloom whatever, things that are not messed with GMOs. And your neighbor right across the field is all into GMOs. They're spitting out, they're drinking the Kool-Aid and spitting out everything they can. When the wind blows and it's pollinating, it's corrupting what you're trying to plant.
Yeah, and you can see this, and I'm not trying to scare anybody or discourage anybody, right? We have to have faith and hope, and you seek the Father on things and how to go about things. But the thing is like we even have lawsuit cases, Jeff, where exactly what you're talking about is brought up because there was cross-pollination was brought over, and they had lawsuits because of this. Things that they couldn't be controlled because it was GMO and what was supposed to be organic. So then you could have bought from the store. It says organic, right? And Jeff, you and I, we've talked about this before. You and I have had a couple comments where you and I were talking about wanting to do that Rumble video, so where we can say some things that we can't say tonight, even though we have said some things tonight that are probably questionable on that stance if it's okay or not. But my goodness, the things you and I would say if we're not censored by YouTube.
Here's the thing right here. Exodus 23:25, right? We can back this up in the Brit Hadashah as well, but here, Exodus 23:25, and ye shall serve Jehovah our God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. As we live in the days of Noah, we've got corruption all around us. Noah had corruption all around him. I believe that God kept him supernaturally. And I think
that's the thing, Jeff. You asked
me the
only
way that we'll be able to make it through any of this type of stuff.
You asked me what my advice would be to people and how I would discuss this without making people feel like they should just go sit in their closet, lock their door, and wait for God to take them.
Right.
Because what can you trust anymore? And it's like, well, Jeff, at the end of the day, we trust God. And this wasn't like you didn't know this answer, but this would have been my advice. I would have said, and what I tell you, Jeff, I said sometimes my wife and I, we go shopping for things, whatever, whether it's grocery store or local. We try to do local more often than not. We try to stay away from the corporations and places that shouldn't even be selling food. But at the end of the day, there's times that we still do that. And you go to grab something, and you hear in the spirit, no, not that one, the one behind it. No, not that one, the one to the left. And that sounds silly, and that sounds simple, and it sounds stupid, and sounds little to anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, when you start considering the chemtrails in the air, when you start considering the poisoning of the water, and they're derailing trains and all these things. Air, water, food, pesticides. It's not even just GMO, Jeff. They even put wax on the apple.
Then they're trying to mess. They're trying to mess with the human genome. They're trying to mess with the every kind of animal they're trying to mess with as well. It is the same exact sin that we see and again, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. That's what we're talking about tonight. And guys, listen, this is massive. When you think about, I mean, because take into account our first 3 videos that we did, right? The first, I'm German, so I guess I should say first 3 videos. There we go. Nod to all my German people. But first 3 videos that we did, all of that, plus what we're talking about tonight,
right?
All of these horrible. Why do we, Ian?
Yeah.
Why do we? We can talk about this. This is cool. Don't freak out. Why do we put red dye number 40 in our food?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Food dyes in general, Jeff. Food dyes in general. Okay, so here's a funny thing. Let me do a Jeff. Let me do this Jeff style. I don't know how well I can do it. I got a lot of love for you, buddy. So I don't know how well I can imitate you here, but I'll go for words. Okay, I'll go for words, not voice or anything like that. But let me share a testimony in Jeff's words. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. My son is 4. Okay, so probably about 2-3 years ago, Jeff.
Yeah.
My son, he was little. Okay, so maybe closer to 3.5 years ago, something like that. He was little. Okay, little guy. And it's funny, Jeff. God does things in a funny way. And my wife and I have seen this in seasons in our walk where like he grabs your attention with something and then he gives you the answer that you would not have found otherwise. Okay.
Right.
So my son, when he was born, he came out with he's got 2 or 3 spots on his skin that are like blemished, but it's like and it's not like a rash, but it kind of looks like a rash. And it's like, I don't want to say permanently because maybe Yah will take it away someday, but they don't go away and come back. There's 3 spots. Right. Okay. And he must have been under a year age old, and we started noticing he had these flare-ups, Jeff, where he'd get real quiet and his skin would go all red, like head to toe. And he'd get now, okay, we're talking baby. Okay. So babies can't always communicate. I'm in pain. They don't always necessarily cry. The fact that he'd get real quiet and looked like he was concentrating and his skin would go all red. And I remember, I think it was the 3rd or 4th time it freaked me out, Jeff. We were driving, I think, from Illinois to the southeast to the Carolinas to visit family, and we were along that trip. I think that's where we were going. And he got real quiet, and we looked back and we saw he was red, and we thought maybe he was overheating or something, Right. And so we pulled over the car, Jeff, because we're talking baby, infant, months, maybe 3, 4, 5 months old, whatever. And so we pulled over and we're trying to figure out, we're trying to cool him down and things like that. And we're praying on things and we're praying for his healing. And we're like, what is this? We don't want to take him to a hospital, but what if he's having some kind of anaphylactic? What if he starts suffocating? Right. We don't know, baby. And we heard in the spirit, food dyes. And we had just gotten him some kind of, I can't remember what it was, but it must have had a red or blue dye in it. Okay. Yeah. And so we heard food dyes. So after that trip, we went and we kept hearing food dyes. Yeah. And this is the 3rd or 4th flare up. So, and they would radiate around those skin blemish spots and then they'd spread throughout the whole body. And then as the body would calm down, they would stay in those, and those skin spots would raise. They would get raised. Yeah. And sometimes those spots would be raised for hours. The rest of the body, the skin would look normal tone, and it seemed like it was real irritable. And if you touched it, and so we felt bad for him. So we prayed on things and we got back from the trip and we kept hearing food dyes. Jeff, we heard in the spirit, Jeff, that he was allergic to red dye specifically and red dye 40. And we said, okay, that's crazy. And I go to get on Facebook to ask some friends about this, some of my health nut friends. And before I can even ask them, I get shown not once or twice, but 3 or 4 times, article after article, before I can even hit anybody up, just in the news feed. Yeah. I think it was even the suggested ads talking about cochineal extract. Are you familiar with this, Jeff?
Nah.
So cochineal extract. Now we can talk about strawberry flavoring. Often uses parts of a beaver's butt and stuff like that. Stuff you don't want in your flavoring. Yeah, artificial flavoring. Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Yeah. Well, that's the cochineal extract. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, so it was the Dunkin' Donuts that I had gotten him My wife had drank Dunkin' Donuts coffee, breastfed, and the cochineal extract, and some of the other times that he had flare-ups were from the red dye. It has cochineal extract in it. This is
Wow.
crushed up cockroach. And so we had to
Ah,
look. We kept hearing that he had a cochineal extract allergy, and so we're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And we find out it has to do with cockroaches, and we're like, well, I'm
mm,
okay with my son being allergic to cockroaches because I don't kind of want him to eat cockroaches, you know.
yeah,
And so then we had
yeah.
to look up what all has cockroaches. Well, Jeff, this is why we buy whole bean coffee now instead of ground coffee,
Oh,
because if you buy ground coffee,
yeah.
cockroaches will get in there. So, you know, and Dunkin' Donuts and stuff like that, a lot of these coffee places, you can't trust that they use whole beans. Certain
Oh,
places do. You can ask them, but we buy whole bean. We actually roast our own coffee now. Which, Jeff, if
yeah.
you're a coffee guy like me at all,
Mhm.
first and last time I'd ever had that kind. Yeah, my wife after that point was like, I'm done. But all the information we received on this was spiritual. We were hearing it in the spirit, and
Yeah,
then we were given the proof of it
yeah.
in articles. So but yeah, food dyes, Jeff.
So
Red,
yeah,
yellow, blue, green, or
why do we
anybody
put
have?
those in the food? Why do we put those in the food just for the lust of the eye? So we'll pick a shiny product.
Yeah,
You
but here's
know
the thing, Jeff. This is something I wanted
what?
to bring up. I'll give it back to you in 2 seconds here, Jeff. But why does bright shiny involve food for us? If you look at actual plantation, it
Yep.
doesn't typically tend to be. That's why they wax. That's why they put wax on apples to make it shine and stuff. So what is
Right.
it about our human nature? Just like, you know, melting things, that's not natural either. I love
Right.
melted cheese, Jeff, but it's not natural.
Right.
But here's the thing. When do we see bright shiny colors in nature, Jeff? Bright,
Warnings.
huh?
Warnings.
Yeah, yeah.
Stay away.
Poison dart frog.
Yeah. Stay away.
When you look, you know, they always have those memes where they make fun of people with the hair that's colored, right? And they
Yeah.
say, oh, you know, in nature that shows you they're toxic, stay away. And there's
Yeah.
that joke. Well, I can't help but think that this is a mirroring in the physical of the spiritual going on, that there is
Yeah.
a draw to these bright colors, but it's outright telling you exactly what nature tells you. This is a poison dart frog. You're not supposed to be eating this. And, you know, and it's funny too, because like if you really do need colors, like beets can be used for great coloring, Jeff. You would not believe how
Oh
you
yeah.
can use beet for coloring for things, and you don't even have to get the taste of beets, but that's beside the point. Who here listening, live or otherwise, has little children? Little children. Let's say like 12 and under, okay? Because when they hit the teenage, it's gonna be hard to tell what of their behavior may be involved with
Yeah.
this. Hit me up afterwards if you're interested, or go search it out. Go on Facebook and even ask if you've got friends like the kind of friends that we have, Fringe and Torah type of people.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you throw a stone out, and there's gonna be a mom that comes forward that says, yes, I've tested this, and I have found out that blue makes my children depressed. Yellow makes them, you know, have issues with not being able to think correctly. Red makes them angry and have outbursts. These dyes have effects on behavior, and it's literally been proven. And where do you find most of these dyes? Like we find these dyes in all kinds of things, and it's usually junk food and things that are not good for you, processed stuff. But where do you really, where's it heavily concentrated? Children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the food dyes because I wanted to, and I had already forgot. So I'm sorry I got all excited there. But...
No, that's good, because I mean the idea here, Ian, is that going back to Genesis 6, all flesh was corrupt, the earth was corrupt, everything was being corrupted. And if we look at it, this is such a sign of the times that we're living in. You know, our grandparents could eat eggs cooked in butter, no problem. You know, now because everything is so processed, everything is just taken out of nature, everything is taken away from its kind. We have so many more health issues. Miranda and I are wanting to do another video, and I think we were talking to you about that with upside down things, off of the Stranger Things theme, and getting it, maybe doing that on Rumble or something, so we can talk a little bit more freely. But there's just so many more things that are out there that we are doing to ourselves on purpose. You call it corporate greed, or you can call it anything you want, but it is literally, we are killing ourselves at a rapid pace. And why are we doing this? I believe that people like, maybe the Bill Gates of the world and different ones like this, I believe they're getting their marching orders from these fallen entities that are now being unleashed again upon the earth. I just see this. The earth was corrupted in Noah's days because of the knowledge that came forth from the fallen watchers. And I think that we are running rampant with that same new technology now. And we're seeing such strides in CRISPR technology and all these different.
I'm glad you brought up CRISPR. Jeff, that's one of the ones I wanted to bring up. We've got synthetic bioengineering. And the idea of rewriting DNA and replacing portions. Okay. Now, years ago when I was growing up, they were getting into that stuff, talking about writing genetic code. But when they had talked about it, it was literally all about splicing it. Do you remember that? You would splice it, and then they would try to replace portions with portions, or they would just take a section out. And the idea was they were trying to isolate genes that had to do with certain
deformities,
conditions, diseases, and things of that nature.
That type of thing. Yeah.
Right. And at least that's how they were marketing it.
Sure.
They'll say whatever they have to say to make it sound good so that you can say, oh, they're one of the good guys. Just like the ear on the mouse. It started out with an ear on the mouse to see if they could grow a human-formed organism on a living mouse. Right. Well, now they have human rat. Did you see this? They just came out with 4 months ago. They made a recent new stride with that, the human rat hybrid. It's no longer an ear on a mouse. They want human rat. Okay. Now, again, people are going to think that I'm nuts. So I have a friend back at home, the home that I grew up in, that rolls his eyes at me anytime I say anything about this anymore. So I got voices like his in my head that make me always try to point to what can be verified, absolutely verified, But back when I was growing up, they were talking about splicing DNA. Yeah. Now they're using computer software with DNA printing capabilities. And even that's been around for a while. I mean, we could argue that that's been around for more than a decade. I mean, they came out with the 3D printers, right? And everybody's like, oh, I can print myself out this and I can print myself out that, right? And most people were thinking like tools and things. And, most people that had gotten a 3D printer at home, they're testing it out. They're making like Batman figurines or little desk things or whatever. And then, it's only a year or so into that before you start seeing people saying, hey, what about 3D printing organs? Because we want to help people in the hospitals. That's why. It has nothing to do with some kind of nefarious agenda, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you start talking about 3D printing. Well, they're already doing that. Okay, Jeff, are you ready to screen share for me?
Yeah. Send me a.
Can you go? No. Just go to Facebook. Can you go to Facebook? You're able to screen share, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Facebook, go to the search bar.
Yeah.
And just type in CRISPR. Do all the capital letters CRISPR. You can Google it, you can YouTube it, but I want Jeff to do it on Facebook just so we can, if we can, Jeff, just for a few minutes, just shortly scroll through. I typed it in today and I couldn't believe my jaw dropped on some of the stuff. This is just Facebook, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, see if you can.
Is that better?
Okay, look at that. Look at that, Jeff. What is that? That's in a school. That's in a lab. They're doing CRISPR.
AP biology students perform a CRISPR. Oh my gosh.
Jeff, I told you. It's insane.
Over the course of several days, the students extracted the edited and non-edited DNA. These are high school students.
Jeff, I've got horror stories from you. I don't know if you remember, but maybe you don't. Like 5-6 years ago, you don't remember they had CRISPR kits for kids?
Oh yeah,
and on the box it literally said, see what you can come up with and stuff like that. And this was marketed and sold for children, and there was all kinds of issues about it because people were getting hurt from it. But they're encouraging children, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, to even be trying to figure out how to look at this one, Jeff.
Gene editing for the masses.
Yeah.
You don't like your genes? You can do it. It's a home kit.
And Jeff, what are they? Look at the dots they're connecting here before you scroll down. It's a Band-Aid on the arm. What is that? What do we connect that to?
Oh my gosh.
When do you put a Band-Aid on your arm? Okay, Jeff.
Yeah.
And they're connecting that. Do you see what I'm saying? That even subtly, they're purposely doing this, Jeff. They purposely want you to connect gene editing for the masses to having syringes. Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean, you can look at all of these things and find all kinds of things. Even have you ever looked at the needle for syringes and
Yeah.
how those work? Have you looked at how they actually constructed that based on the mouth of a snake? Have you looked at
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That's where they got that from.
Yeah.
The shape of the thing. That's how they got it. They got it from a snake. So that's how it administers poison. That's where they
Right.
got the idea. Oh, that thing is doing exactly what we want to do, but we want to do it for good. You know, we're
Yeah.
not actually pumping poison, but that's where they went to, Jeff.
Wow.
Where do
Wow.
we see injecting poison? Let's go for the exact model. It's tongue in cheek, and they find it funny. They
Right.
find it funny, but they're killing people, Jeff. But
Oh.
it's further than killing. Keep scrolling down. See
All right.
what.
Okay,
see
here
what
we
else
go.
find here.
This is live, guys.
Okay,
you
yeah,
go.
you got this stuff here that people are, but notice they're in lab coats, okay? So this isn't, you can't, but keep going. People are gonna roll their eyes at that. Oh, wait, go back up a little bit, real quick. These are groups here, Jeff.
Yeah.
Let me see. I can't see it. See if you can. There's one of them that says something about.
This is
read-
CRISPR CS.
No. Read what it says for people to join it. Something along the
Oh.
lines of if you want to change your DNA or if you don't believe in
Oh, here
God,
we
those-
go.
those-
Yeah. So this one is CRISPR Cas9. It's got 15,000 members.
Yeah.
So you want to live forever? Join
Yeah,
the biological revolution. Discussions, articles, webinars, paper, video. This is okay. So you want to live forever? You want to be a god? Here we go.
If you want to be immortal, where does that sound familiar? All right, keep scrolling down.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling down, Jeff. Oh, I'm telling you, we're about to start hitting things into the fun stuff. Look at this, CRISPR. They're actually showing you about how they do it, right?
Yeah.
Well, these are basic CRISPR kits. I mean, this is the general stuff. This isn't the advanced stuff. Keep going. And they're trying to desensitize.
Yeah.
Keep going. There's some, and of course everybody that posts about it is all about how exciting it is, and you'll even see in some of these posts, these people will say, well, I know it's morally and ethically, questionable because once you mess with the DNA, like it's permanent, and that will get passed along, but this is why it's going to be for good. Keep going. Yeah, see right there? Wait, scroll up a little bit. Back in the day, they used to cut pieces out. See, now they're talking about replacement, okay? And that's important when if we get into the discussion of the third strand and all of that. All right, keep going.
Right. Yep.
Because they actually have the capability to do that now. Whereas a decade ago, when I did videos, Jeff, almost a decade ago about the third strand of DNA, how that connects to Nimrod and how that connects to the more than likely the mark of the beast technology and stuff of that nature. And I stopped talking about it because nobody seemed to really care back then. And now they have the capability to add a third strand to the DNA, Jeff, and they're actually already doing it in certain places. Keep going.
Oh, God.
See, there might be a couple more good ones. Keep going. You have more in yours than what I was being shown. They're showing you more than they show me, Jeff.
Well, there we go.
All right. Well, that's I suppose that's good enough. Anybody who wants to go look for it for themselves can go find it. But I just wanted to show the audience. You just type in CRISPR in Facebook, and you're gonna find what.
Oh, I remember. I
alligator
posted
and
this.
catfish.
I posted
that,
this. Yeah, I posted this a while back. They put alligator genes into catfish.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck? Yeah,
just
I remember
because
that
they can. The whole point is they want to see what they can do.
And again, we get back to the whole idea. Just like with the fallen angels, they're saying, "Hey, we know better than God. We can handle this.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?"
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, you've got the human monkey in China. That's their most recent one. And it's reminiscent of Hanuman, one of the deities of India, where there are claims of skeletal remains found. And that's one of the taller giant ones. If you look for it, there's claims for it. Some of the other more recently acclaimed where they're really proud of themselves. These are all basic ones that have been redone. Okay, so you have the human monkey in China.
Right.
You have human sheep, which I think was in the UK. The human pig, and then you have the human rat, which is I think one of the more newer ones that I saw. And it's funny. You go through their articles, and they're always showing you pictures of the embryo stage. And I said, isn't that so convenient? Because they're talking about what goes beyond that, but they don't want to show you pictures of what goes beyond that because they want you to have this beautiful picture in your mind that we're doing science.
This is Newsweek. This is not Fringe.
Right. I'm telling you, Jeff, this is what I'm saying. Anybody who's afraid of the National Enquirer bleed through, and I understand it because the truth movements and stuff like that, we've we've all taken a hit and been duped at some point or another, or fell for an article or what
Yeah.
have you. So I understand. Stay away from the National Enquirer, or if it looks like it, I'm okay with it. I get it. I mean, I'm not saying that I go to the National Enquirer. I'm saying if it looks anything like it and you
Right.
don't like that vibe, stay away from it. That's fine. You can find all this goofy nutso stuff from the horse's mouth, from the guys in the lab coats. They're proud of this stuff. And so yeah, you go through their articles and they're talking about the embryo, but they don't want to show you what comes beyond the embryo because, Jeff, they're trying to get society prepared for. Do you remember back, what was it, a few years ago, they came up with things and they said, wouldn't you like your vision to be like an eye of an eagle? Do you remember that? They even had a commercial. They said, wouldn't you like to have the speed of a cheetah or an eye of a hawk or an eagle and all these things? And I'm sitting there watching this and I was like, are they going to go with human animal hybrid, or are they going with technology, or are they doing both? What are they pushing here? Because those are the two things that I'm going to argue leads to really what comes out in the end here. But it's funny because they don't want to show you what comes after those embryos, Jeff, because no matter how successful they say, it looks like the Goonies. And nobody wants to line up for the shots at Walgreens with the picture of, hey, you guys, in the back of their head, because nobody wants to look like that guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh.
But yeah, you look up chimeras, you're going to find stuff. Okay. When you look up human animal hybrids, you're not going to find just ancient deities, which, mind you, isn't all nonsense. You and I talked about that in the Exodus series, right?
Yeah.
And you can still dismiss the lion men of Moab if you like. You can dismiss the mythology, but at the end of the day, you really can't dismiss all of the ancient deity documentation when you look at how they wrote about it. Okay. But even if you do decide to dismiss all of that, keep in mind, in the dirt, in archaeology, in modern archaeology today, we have found airplanes. We have found documentation of warfare dating thousands of years ago.
We have BC. We see evidence, Ian, and I put this in my book because I found it fascinating. We see evidence of a nuclear type device going off in the pre-flood era, desert of India.
Yeah.
There's a certain type of glass that's made from a nuclear explosion on the desert, and we have that, and it's thousands of years old. So how do we get there? We see mentioned you mentioned about this earlier in the Hindu writings.
Yeah.
The Vimana. And Ian, when you go and you look at that technology, let's get into the technology a little bit. I know we're kind of going.
That's the direction I want to go. I know we are, but we're towards the end of my notes. And this is where we're going to start speculating. We're going
around by the as the Spirit's having us go. So they had such technology back then. If you go and you look at this, I actually wrote about this in my book because I found it, and then right after I published my book, I started hearing Skiba talk about it. I started hearing Tim Abarino talk about it. That when you go and you look at these writings, and they're translated in English, you can read them. It is literally like reading a technical manual for an airplane. And I'm like,
they found models of them, and then they rebuilt them and found that they do fly.
They work.
Jeff, this is all, like you're saying, we have archaeological evidence. But Jeff, you know what blows my mind? Because people see that they have the airplane references and stuff like that, and the saucers, the flying saucers, and they go to the late night History Channel mindset, right? You have History During the Day, which is talking about the battlefields of the Civil War and World War II, and then you have the History Channel at night, which is a whole different History Channel, right? And they're constantly trying to convince you at the end of the story, it's always what? Aliens.
Ancient aliens.
It always goes back to ancient aliens, and that they're the true gods, and that they're coming back, and this and that. That's what they always want to go to, and of course they're going to go to that. Extraterrestrial, but it's really interdimensional beings that come to you with answers. We've never had that before. We should definitely go check out what that's all about. Okay. But what really gets me, Jeff, is when simple stuff. You look at the megalithic structures, you can't fit a blade of grass or one hair between these stones that are multi-ton stones, Jeff. And I remember when I first came across this, I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. No, Jeff, we can't do it. We don't even have cranes that can move these stones. Okay, how did they cut these stones? How did they shape them? You ever see
Yeah.
those walls, Jeff? The ones where they have the stones are like weirdly shaped, as if they had been like squished by a hand, like a marshmallow, and then somebody else perfectly fit another one where it looks like a jigsaw puzzle. You seen those?
Like
How do you,
like this?
Jeff? How do you do that? We
Yeah.
can't do that today. We can't
No,
do that today.
we
We have
can't.
laser technology, and we still can't get it. We still
Yeah.
can't get it. You like I don't. There's going to be some people that hear this video that are not going to fully comprehend.
So
We
this
can't
this
do
is,
this. We can't replicate this.
hey guys, I actually left this up here. This is Machu Picchu
Yeah.
in South America. And there's examples of this all over everywhere. You cannot. These stones weigh tons,
Yeah.
and these are on the top of mountains where these
This
structures
isn't
are
even
at.
this isn't even the one where it's a staircase and each step is twice the size of a human being. You've seen those, right?
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? The 12-foot steps. It
yeah.
shows people standing there and they're looking at how flat and perfect the stone is and everything. And the camera zooms out and there's like 15 more steps. And it's like, what the crap was walking up that thing?
Here's a cool picture, just to kind of give you an idea of the size of these things.
Oh, jeez. But
You know?
you see how it's curved there at the top, Jeff. But look at how perfectly.
Each one of these are curved. Look at this curve. Can you see my mouse?
That's
No.
just
Look at that. Okay, we were talking technology. Look at this.
Yeah.
This is from an Egyptian hieroglyph.
Oh, these guys here that are tall, Jeff, on the sides, they're just tall because it shows that they're important.
No,
That's what they'll tell you.
Giants, guys. These are giants, and these are their little servant humans going around. Some kind of electricity thing going on. I genuinely think that they had better technology than we have today.
Oh yeah.
Man,
yeah.
You know, okay. We had Fritz Zimmerman on a couple of times on our program. I don't have his slides up. I just thought about this, but we had Fritz Zimmerman on, and there's some mounds here in the real close to where we live. We're in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. We actually live in Moundsville, West Virginia, which has the tallest mound, I think, in the United States. And then a couple, maybe about an hour and a half away from us is Newark, Ohio. And they have a mound over there, Ian, that the whole complex area is several miles across. And, you know, our modern archaeologists will tell us that, oh, the American Indians built that.
Yeah.
The
But the Native Americans, but they
didn't have
themselves,
they
the chiefs literally said it wasn't them. They said that they weren't the mound builders.
They
They've
said it wasn't
many
them.
times over.
They didn't have a written language at the time. They had a language, but they didn't have a written language at the time. And they were able to cite in things that we would have trouble today if it wasn't for lasers.
Oh, I
Like
know.
a laser,
Oh, I know.
laser
There's
transit.
multiple. There's
They're
multiple sites like that.
3
in
miles
Ohio.
across this one
Mhm.
thing, and this complex maps out the movements of the moon over an
Yeah.
18-month period.
Yeah.
How do you do that without a computer? How do you do that without a written language? Fritz brought out that the scientists that he was working with on that project said that the trigonometry used for that is something that we do not possess today. That's
Yeah.
blowing your mind.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've been to some of the mound sites in Ohio, and I don't think we went to
Yeah.
that one. I'd have to ask my wife which one we went to, but they were showing the geometric patterns of the
Yeah.
centers, and you know what I'm talking about, where it's from the center and
Yep.
you have the radius, and there's
Mhm.
positioning for that and how it lines up with the movement of stars and things like
Yeah.
that. And it's outright insane. Okay, so Jeff, because we can talk all day about ancient technology and
Yeah.
we could point to how things have gotten worse over the years and not better. Skiba did a good job of that. Trey Smith did a good job of that. A lot of those guys, if you want to go more into that.
Oh, listen,
Jeff,
yeah, I
wanna
recommend
know-
going back, looking at what Skiba had to say. And Trey Smith, guys, if you've never, Trey's a little interesting to listen to. He's got a little cadence to him. But he's got some amazing stuff documented and researched out. So I would highly recommend going and checking some of those things out. I didn't mean to I did interrupt you. I meant to, but
No, you're fine.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Okay. So I wanted to get into two, but really one thing here. But I want to give you the chance to have any other notes before we start talking about what we see today
Yeah.
and how that points to Revelations 13. Do you want to go into that tonight?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to touch on that a little bit?
Before we get there,
did you need a 2-minute break? Because I was going to run to the restroom. That was part of also why I wanted to give you the chance to say any of your last notes before we move forward.
Yeah. You know what? Why don't we
do the
can we put on the commercial? You got a commercial?
Yeah, we can do the commercial. You know, did you notice I used the wrong intro? I forgot until after I used it. I was like, oh, I didn't use the Noah intro. I forgot we had one, Jeff.
I tell you what, why don't you hit the Days of Noah intro, and then I'll follow it up with
the Jades.
With Jade, and then we'll take a little bit of break, guys.
Okay. Take turns?
Okay. I'll do it, brother. Here we go.
Okay.
Let's see.
As the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, they knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. When once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a-preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls were saved by water. Indeed, the way is straight and narrow which leads unto life, and few there be that find it. Zakar, Jehovah, remember me, Adonai, with the favor of your people, remember me, and visit me with your salvation, Yeshua. For the time is coming, and is, even now, when mankind's wickedness is growing and the love of many is waxing cold. The imaginations of the thoughts of the hearts are evil, and many have corrupted their way. The world is filling with violence, and many believe all things continue as they were from the beginning. They choose to dismiss the great flood, but we are not ignorant of your promise. We know the heavens and the earth are reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men.
All right, brother.
You were fast, man. You rushed.
I did, brother.
You were quick. I saw you run to that chair. I was like, yo, it's still going. We should make that commercial longer. We should.
Oh, yeah. I was actually trying to switch over to my brand. I had another commercial.
Oh, my bad. Hey, no, you can put it back on there if you want.
No, I didn't know if I didn't know how that would work, but let me flip back. There we go. So, all right. I think no, it's all good, man. I need to upload that JJ's commercial up here so we could have that too, but as another thing. But yeah, hey, so before we get into Revelation 13, I did have one other thing I wanted to pull up. I think Skiba may have talked about this before. Thank you, babe. Let me blow this up over here to where I can get it, and let me share it. We were talking about hybrids. We were talking about different types of things that we have seen, and this every time I think about this stuff, we have seen evidence of these things. Do you remember this with the satyr being found? Do you remember this?
With the satyr being found?
They found the skeleton remains of a satyr. Russian scientists found this back in 2011. It made a broadcast. I can provide the link for this, but it's in Russian. If you go back a little bit, the guy's talking and.
Имя этому уникальному артефакту придумали не любители фантастики, а самые что ни на есть консервативные ученые. В древнем захоронении, вскрытом во время раскопок, было обнаружено нечто странное. Бараний скелет с человеческим черепом. Более изящного определения, чем человека-баран, свои находки археологи подобрать не смогли.
Что это такое человека-баран? То есть там была комбинация черепа молодого человека до 25 лет и туловище барана. Вот так вот это все находилось, вот в таком положении.
Сергею Савенко одному из...
If you go back and you look, let me see if I can get back to it.
Well, you know what the Septuagint says about satyrs in the end times?
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Dancing in the wilderness.
This is a wing right here. This is not part of his arm. This is a wing. There's all kind of interesting. Interesting parts to this thing that they found. Anyway, so I can.
So here's the thing, Jeff.
Yeah, we have historic evidence.
I said a couple of times, Hasatan wants to do what?
Yeah.
He wants to do what, Jeff? What's he want to do? He wants to copy the Most High. He wants to be like the Most High. Okay, so because I've had people ask me before, why the human animal hybrid thing? Even if just some, not all, but even if just some of the deities of the great ancient mythology, whether you're talking Greek or Roman or Indian or what have you, right? Because the Hindu have all kinds of stuff. Like I said, Hanuman, that was one of their favorites. And it was supposed to be this 100-foot tall human monkey god thing. Yep. You know, and they've got the elephant and all that other stuff too. But here's the thing, Jeff. Hasatan wants to be like the Most High.
Yeah.
How many times in Scripture, Jeff? Because I don't think people tend to connect this dot. This might be new for somebody.
Yeah.
Jeff, how many times do we have in Scripture where it talks about angelic beings and it says it has the face of a man, but also of a lion and an eagle? Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff,
he's trying to copy
because people ask me, they say, what's that got to do with the mark of the beast? People aren't going to want to be like animals in the end times. And I am pushing more for the technology aspect and the black goo and stuff like that. And hopefully we'll get to that in a minute here. But human animal hybrid, these angelic beings are sometimes described to have somewhat human shaped bodies, but they have wings and animal faces. And then sometimes, they're covered with eyes from head to toe and they're all over the place and they got wheels and things.
But you see that the there's nothing new under the sun, correct?
Yeah.
That's what the word says. And so when we see these fallen entities trying to do create these hybrids, where did they get the idea? Where did they get the idea of a man and something with the face of a man, something with the these cherubim? Wow, what where did they get these ideas from? From the Father, and they're trying to do it after their own kind.
Right.
And God said, no. You guys
don't. They want to make their own version. That's why you got like the Lamassu at the gates of Babylon and things like that.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I just don't think that that's often connected to when you see the angels being mentioned in Scripture. I think a lot of people don't tend to catch that connection there. So here's the thing, Jeff. We've got the hybrids and the chimeras. We've got clones. And there's plenty of people talking about clones nowadays. They're not even hiding that they're able to do it anymore. They're just not willing to admit that they do so with politicians and presidents and celebrities and stuff like that. And I don't want to get too much into that tonight. But that is a topic out there for anybody who's not familiar. So here's the thing. You get these people, and I think this is also part of the enemy as well, but it's also a partial understanding. You get these people that say, do not talk to me about the mark of the beast. Right? We've got these. This is a thing now. Do not talk to me about the mark of the beast. And then they followed up with what? because first everybody said it was barcodes, then they said it was social security numbers, and then they said it was a birth certificate. Do not talk to me about
Sick of hearing about it.
Right. But what's funny, Jeff, is if there was ever a time in the history of the world where everybody in general, the masses say, I don't want to hear it anymore about the mark of the beast, when would that be? Right before
the mark of the beast.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? And people get worked up and they said, I'm tired of it because it obviously wasn't barcodes, it obviously wasn't social security numbers, obviously it wasn't biometric scanning, hand scanning, eye scanning, and stuff like that. Although we're gonna get there in a second. Here's the thing. I don't see a problem with us throughout time identifying that which is of the system, because we're supposed to be watching. It says, watch therefore, right? That's what we read.
Yeah.
Many times Yeshua said, I'd say to you that I say to all, watch therefore. How many times have we talked about? What is that, like Mark 13:30 or something like that? 13:30, 31, something like that. Yeah. Watch therefore. Okay, so we're supposed to be looking for these things. Okay, and that doesn't mean to jump the fence and say, okay, this is it. The shot is it. This is it. This is it. It's not necessarily jumping the fence on it, but at the same time, we should be looking for these things. So here's my question, Jeff, is I think that because we've had so many
people
crying wolf.
Yeah,
it is. It's worn. Well, I mean, just look at the last 3 years. How many times did they say, don't wear one of these, wear one of these, don't wear one of these, wear 2 of these, go follow the arrows on the grocery store. Oh, wait, don't have to worry about it at all. Get a shot, don't get a shot. You don't have to get a shot. Yes, you have to get a shot. No, you don't have to get a shot. Just now, I'm seeing people again wearing these things again. I thought people were done with it.
I saw some people today. Yep.
They're so up and down. You get worn out, and you don't want to think for yourselves, or at least the masses don't tend to want to think for themselves. But go ahead. I got something, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, we see the same thing with not only with the mark of the beast, but with his coming. Oh, as the days of Noah. Hey, I'm sick about hearing about the coming of Yeshua, the coming of Jesus. We've been talking about that forever. I grew up in the days of the late great planet Earth. 88 reasons that Jesus is coming back in 1988. All these people putting dates, putting all this stuff. Here we go. 2 Peter 2:4, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? Paul said scoffers are going to come in the last days. We have this wore out mentality with everything. Don't talk to me about the beast, the mark of the beast. Don't talk to me about the end times. That's all I ever hear about. I'm wore out of hearing about it. Well, listen, you need to hear about it today, because today, my gosh, we have so many things that are there.
So here's my question, Jeff.
Yeah.
You got the wearing out of the masses, and then you got, like Cindy brings up here in the chat, there's verses that talk about the wearing out of the saints, and They might not be the exact same thing, but they can happen simultaneously because of the same things, right? We're all worn out of each other. The body of those that are outside the body, those that are outside of the body are tired of the body. Okay, but here's the thing, Jeff. Here's my question, right? When we look at Revelations 13, okay, do you just want to go there and then we'll backstep it real quick?
Do it. I'm pulling it up right now.
So we go to Revelations 13. Let me do it too so I can just look. Okay, so it's talking about the beast coming out of the sea. It has 7 heads and 10 horns, right? And on the horns are crowns, and upon the heads are the names of blasphemy, right? Now there is at least 500 different interpretations of this, anywhere from the Roman Catholic Church to the 7 hills that roams on to
we have
7 sister mountains.
Denominations, and we probably have 50,000 different versions of this. So.
Oh my goodness, yes, right. So it's talking about the feet are the leopard. It's like unto a leopard, the body of a leopard, but it's got feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion, the dragon, the power and stuff. And it's not as common now that people are actually visualizing this physical creature coming up out of the waters and everybody being like, oh yeah, I'll worship you, I'm down for that, but rather being metaphors here, right? Yeah. And you've got the wounding of the head, and you've got all kinds of arguments as to what that means, right?
Yep.
But you go down a little bit, okay, you go down, and he's talking about making war with the saints and stuff like that. Okay, let me see. And you've got the first beast and the second beast, right? Okay, and you've got the means and the miracles and stuff like that. Where am I? Okay, so you go down to Revelations 13. When you look down at like 15, 16, 17, 18, right? These are usually the verses that most people are familiar with, that are even like atheists and stuff like that. We've heard it all. You got life to the image of the beast. Okay, keep in mind, Hasatan wants to do what, Jeff? He wants to be like the Most High.
He wants to be like the Most High.
Okay.
I think there's a theme tonight.
I'm telling you, Jeff, I'm telling you, and it's going to circle around if I'm able to get really through some of the stuff I want to get through tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeshua is what? If we're giving life to the image of the beast, Yeshua is what? He's the image of the Father, right?
He's the image of the Father. He's the express image of the Father.
So if the enemy wants to be like the Most High, right?
Yep.
He wants to make these animal human hybrid things, and like angels, they seem to have they were Elohim, if you will, of the world, right? So you can see how Satan would say, yeah, that's my version. Okay, so we have given life, which is a whole very interesting of itself, to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should be able to speak now that it's been given life, okay? However you interpret that, whether it's AI or whatever, causes many that would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. This is for everybody, whether you're in prison or not, whether you're homeless or not, whether you can afford it, whether you're on food stamps or you're wealthy. Everybody, according to this verse, is being pushed to receive a mark in the right hand or in their forehead, right? And so then it says that no man might buy or sell, or that they say have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of the name. Okay, look, it says, here's the wisdom, let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. How many versions of counting the number are there? Anywhere from the hat of the Pope to carbon, especially in terms of in relation to graphene, right? You can see the 666 calculations there.
You got 666 in Disney. You got 666.
Right. Oh, it's all over the place. Well, here's the thing. The number is kind of like a thumbprint. It's a signifier, right? So you can find it all over the place, but people try to calculate is what I'm saying. So you have like the Pope's hat, and there's people who say, well, that's what it's referencing, the Pope's hat. Okay, but it's like, how are you going to receive the mark of the Pope? Okay, anyways, we'll get into that in a second.
Right.
So it says it's the number of a man. Okay, and his number is 666. Okay, so here's a few things I just want to bring up. First off, when we've talked about before Samuel, right? We've talked about that before. When things are twice, God really means it. When he had the dreams with Joseph and with the Pharaoh and the famine, it was twice. And he said, the two dreams are actually one. And he's emphasizing that he's going to do it and he's going to do it quickly. That's a double. Okay, but not many people talk about the triples. Jeff, when it says holy, 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 is the Lamb of God. Okay, so the enemy wants to do what, Jeff?
Copy it.
I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. Okay,
to be like
something to think about.
Yeah.
When you have that holy, 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 you have that tripling, right? You have these 3 sixes here, and there's all kinds of things that we can try to calculate with that, even involving DNA manipulation. Okay.
Right.
But is it possible, as one of the many onion layers, you have the number of this individual being tripled for the emphasis thereof, because it's unholy, unholy, unholy. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay,
and maybe we'll wrap back around to the 3 strands of DNA and how that's a number of a man. The DNA is a code and a language, and it is the telling of a man. And if you are adding to it or taking away from or manipulating, you're changing it. It is now in the image of what? The creator, of whoever created that manipulation, right? Your 3 strands of DNA. Okay, just something to think about, okay? Just something to think about. Okay, so here's the thing. So people get this, they think about this and they go, okay, I've seen some pretty cool arguments. What was it? Waleed Shoebat. You ever listen to him from way back in the day? I used to listen to him like 8 years ago, Waleed Shoebat. Yeah. And he was one of my favorite guys to go into Muslim stuff. And he was convinced, Jeff, just like some people are convinced everything is about the Pope and the Vatican. He was convinced everything is about Islam, right? So he says, okay, when it says receive the mark in the right hand, he says, well, the word hand there can mean arm. A lot of people don't know this, but that is actually true. You can look at the Greek there, and the hand can mean arm, right? So then he says, okay, like a swastika band, you have it on your right arm. And then he is showing the holy wars by the Islamic push for jihad, right? The holy wars. They would wear a bandana over the forehead, and they'd have a band on their arm. And he'd say, see, look, arm and forehead mark, right? And then he would actually show you the calculations of what would be written on those things. And it would calculate out to be 666. And it would also reference to being in the image of Allah. So it all fit very nicely. Now, I'm not convinced, but here's my point, Jeff. I want to point out a few different things. And then I want to say that perhaps, just like the 666 in Disney, this is just fingerprinting. This is fingerprinting. And so instead of trying to figure out which one is it, consider the grand picture. Let's try to scope back and
Yeah.
consider all of these things and see how they're pointing forward. Okay. And I'm not claiming that I have the solution or the answer, but certain things I think are starting to look a little bit more clear. Okay. Okay. So you have that. And then you've got, like I said, you got the Pope's hat. What about the Seventh Day Adventists, Jeff? What do they say about the mark of the beast?
Oh, that's you're not following Sabbath.
Yeah,
There you
it's Sunday worship, right? Which
Yeah,
that always blew my mind. Okay, so anybody who's not familiar with the scripture outright says, God says that the Sabbath is a sign between you and me, between the Father and between his children, between his followers. And it does say that it should be a frontlet before your eyes and upon your hands. And he's talking about his instructions, and a lot of the times those verses are also referencing to Shabbat, and that it is a sign of the covenant. This is a token. It represents, just like the rainbow represents the covenant with Noah. You have this Shabbat being a sign between God and his people, saying, I am your God, you are my people. This is a sign of our covenant, our agreement. Okay. And so they take that and they say, okay, Sunday church. If it's not Shabbat and it's on Sunday, now you've taken a mark of the enemy, and they point to the Roman Catholic Church and how they've changed Shabbat over into Sunday. And they say, see, it's really all about the mark of the beast is all about your thoughts and your hand. Well, this is what drives me crazy, Jeff. Okay, so you're telling me that in order to buy and sell, in order to go to the grocery store, I have to prove my attendance to a Sunday service. That's what they're saying, Jeff. If we really get past all that, because I mean, they bring up verses and they argue it very nicely until you just sit back and go, wait a minute. So the enemy wants atheists to be Catholic. Is that what they're saying? The enemy's not okay with them being atheists. He needs them to be Catholic. That's what they're saying, Jeff.
Right.
Jeff, the Muslims, the Mormons, they all need to become Catholic.
Yeah, most of the arguments that we see played out, you know, a lot of times, let's just be honest, especially when you're younger in the faith, when you first read about him, you first hear him, you're like, oh man, that makes perfect sense. But then as you really begin to dig more into the scriptures, and you see there's this vast array of scriptures that deal with these issues, they all have to fit, not just the majority, not just your favorite ones, not just the key points of the argument. They all have to fit, and if it all doesn't fit, it's not
when you're new, Jeff, when you're new,
you don't know,
and I'm glad you said that. If somebody connects dots, and you're not used to your church talking about, because let's be real, most churches do not want to touch the book of Revelation. They do not want to touch the last half of Daniel. I used to point fingers at churches when I was newly born again, going, you guys don't even want to talk about this. I want to discuss it. And I wasn't mean in their face like that.
Right.
But in my heart, I was thinking, you cowards, let's get into it. And if you don't have an answer, be real with me, but don't be cowardly. And now I look at it and I go, you know, I'm not justifying all of it, but I understand, and I do see some wisdom a little bit. Number one, if you don't have the answer, perhaps don't say anything at all. Or if you are going to say something, be careful with what you're saying, right? Rather than just
dogmatic. Don't make it dogmatic, right?
You know, and so like I understand these pastors' fears. They some of them. I think there are some, not all, but I think some have good intentions, Jeff, and they really do think if I come out with something and they find a flaw or it's not convinced, or if I don't give them a sufficient answer, they're just going to dismiss me, and then that flock is going to go under a shepherd that doesn't care for them. So instead of allowing that risk, I'm just not going to touch the topic. I understand that, okay?
Sure.
I do. I get it. Okay, so we talked about the SDA thing. We talked about the Muslim thing. We talked a little bit about the Catholic thing. Okay, so now, Jeff, I want to ask, and we're going to
talk about what just happened today.
We're going to spitball some things. What happened today? Are you talking about with what's his face with the
King Charles
coronation and everything like that?
Yeah,
and they were arresting people before they protested. Did you catch that?
I did.
They arrest. It's like thought police. It was like George Orwellian.
It was rough.
Jeff, it said they arrested him because they had the intent to protest. Jeff,
Brandon, I watched the coronation.
Did you see the quote that I sent you?
I did. I saw that.
Oh,
that blew my mind.
I felt like I was listening to SNL British style.
We watched the coronation, and every major religion was represented, and they all bowed down to King Charles today.
No. And you know, the coat of arms is interesting. I have seen that thing that you had sent, and I'd seen a couple other ones, and there's some interesting stuff on that. I'm not going to say there isn't.
And I'm not convinced that he's the Antichrist, but boy, checks off quite a few boxes. I'll
He
throw
fits
that
the
out.
bill on a lot of things. But I mean, I could say that about a lot of things. When I
You could.
about 7 years ago, I was even looking at Erdogan of Turkey and stuff like that.
Turkey.
Because if this is this is an if now, Jeff. I don't even know about your.
We need to do a show on Turkey.
Yeah, we'll see.
Brother, come on.
We'll
There's
see.
so much with Turkey, and you're holding back. I'm just
I know.
calling you out. There we
I
go.
know. That's okay. Okay, so Jeff, so here's the question, Jeff, because now
Yeah.
everybody agrees on this. Is the little horn in reference to the Antichrist? And we'll talk about that in a second for anybody who's not familiar with that term. Do you believe personally at this moment, which means you can change your mind down the road?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you stick to anything, but right where you are right now, is the little horn the Antichrist?
I think so.
Okay. Is that little horn also the one that the scripture calls the Assyrian?
I would think so.
Then he'd have to have Assyrian blood, Jeff.
I agree.
So,
Okay.
So,
I know.
so
Hang
we
on.
can,
Whoa, whoa,
so
whoa, whoa,
we
whoa,
can
whoa.
check
Time out,
boxes all day.
time out. Whoa. The video I sent you, they actually addressed King Charles with having Assyrian blood.
Yeah, but would you call him the Assyrian?
I don't know. Probably not.
So I think I remember.
I get where you're coming from. I totally get where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, if it's the little horn and the Assyrian, there's
Yeah.
verses that says he comes up from a little people.
Yeah.
Now,
But if you
you're
look
royal-
at his actual lineage, he's
Yeah.
not the actual king. The actual king
Right. Yeah, I remember that argument.
is in Australia, and he don't want the job.
Yeah.
So the Tudors were a little people. Anyway, just
Little as in amount, or are you talking little as in like
they were peasants. They were
okay.
peasants.
Yeah, but how far back
Interesting
though?
stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I'm
How
not saying
how
he
far
is.
back, Jeff. I know you're not. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to put you in the hot spot. But this is the thing that the listeners, when they get excited for the brand new videos, or if they get upset for teachers not having the answers, listen. When you start
so
looking
much.
at the Antichrist or the mark of the beast, you don't want to look at all of these things at once. You want to pinpoint one thing if you're going to do it at all. Make sure you're being led by the Spirit, and then you have to consider all these things. If you're looking at the Antichrist, okay, it says the beast is of the seven. There's ways to interpret that, multiple ways. Okay, and it says that he's of the seven and is even the eighth. Okay, now you go back to Daniel. We look at Daniel 2. You have the dream with Nebuchadnezzar. You have the statue, right? And it's going from gold all the way down until it's iron and clay. Now, interesting. I remember when my mind was blown on this. It was like 2014, 2015. I was looking at it.
He was the first one I heard talk about this. Blew my mind.
Oh, it wasn't even Skiba. I don't know if I had anybody. I remember I was reading it and I said, 10 toes, 10 toes and 10 kings, 10 toes in Daniel 2, 10 kings in Revelation. And that was mind blowing to me. And then, later on Skiba, I think Marzulli had mentioned that as well. And there was a couple of others. But when you start looking at all these different things, you have to consider all these things. Okay. So when it says, you want to go over to Daniel and then we'll come back to this. Yeah, willing, because I'm all over the place.
Let's see.
That's how these conversations get, though, and that's why
Daniel,
I tend to be hesitant about topics like this.
Is that 12?
No, it's Daniel 2 for the dream.
For the statue. That's right. Okay.
If you go to Daniel 2 and then you go down to the bottom there, it's 42 and 43 is the one that I was referencing. Right, you get down. It's talking about the different kingdoms over time. Right.
There we go.
And a lot of people have no problems with understanding that with Greece and Persia and stuff like that. And then you get to the bottom and it's Rome for the iron. And then you get to the verses 41, 42, 43. It says, and then you see the feet and the toes. Remember, toes have 10 toes. Potter's clay, right? Which is often, especially in the book of Jeremiah, a reference to mankind, especially represented in the image of God. Okay. Potter's clay, as informed by, when it says he formed you in the womb, it has the same language and in the same context as the potter's clay. And we talked about this as well in the Exodus series when we talked about the midwife's stool and what that meant for the Egyptians. It wasn't actually a stool. Okay.
Right.
So it says that the feet and the toes, part clay, part iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron. Okay. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay. As the toes of the feet were part of the iron and part clay, so the king shall be partly strong, partly broken. Where you saw the iron mixed with the clay, they shall mingle themselves. This is King James that says mingle themselves. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now, remember, it says iron there, okay? Because even here in this context, I think it's even here in Daniel 2, it talks about that iron and how it breaks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
you
Go
can
ahead.
see that iron mentioned later on towards the end of Daniel, and you see that as well in Revelation, okay? The whole breaking and stuff like that. Okay, so here's the thing, Jeff. Daniel 2:43, you go into the Hebrew, okay?
Yep.
And you go over to where it says they shall mingle themselves, right? And it says to corresponding to commingle, to mix with itself, okay? And then you have the seed of men, right?
So if they're mingling, if they're mingling with the seed of men, if they're mixing with the seed of men, that means that there is something else besides the seed of men in order for it to mingle.
Right. Well, and see, that's the thing, Jeff. So that's the thing, right? Because there's all kinds of, because I remember when I was first looking at this, we're talking 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was looking at it and I'm going, okay, that's fallen angels. And I'm not away from that, but I'm looking at it in a different lens now than I did back then. Okay. Because back then I was thinking more physical in the terms of like, trying to recreate giants, and you're trying to make these half human, half demonic breed things, and you're going to get all kinds of weird stuff. Okay. But keep in mind what we've talked about tonight. Right. And then you have the cyborg. Okay. So here's the thing, Jeff.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there because I was thinking this too. And I'm not away from that either, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I used to think humankind with fallen angel. I was thinking giant and weird, hey, you guys, right? And then when I was thinking with technology, I was thinking that RoboCop, right? And I'm sitting there going like, oh, these are two very weird images, and the future's going to look crazy. How do they not know that it's end times? It says, and you and I argued in one of the earlier videos in this series that it's going to be business as usual. As per usual, we said, Jeff, you and I, we both said that multiple times. So how does that fly when everybody's looking like the Goonies or looking like RoboCop? So let's keep in mind of what we were talking about with advanced technology, gene manipulation, Jeff. Okay, so we're keeping this in mind. We've got the image here of iron, and we've got the mingling with the seed of man in Daniel 2. Okay, now, Jeff, let's take a step back, and let's just look at what has already occurred in my lifetime. Jeff, I don't want to go over yours because I don't even know how much more that's going to have in there, Jeff. But in my lifetime, I have watched, we had the mixtapes and the cassette tapes and stuff, but that's not what I want to get into. Okay, you have the CDs, and we had the phones on the line in the kitchen before there was computers in everybody's house. Okay, and then they got the computers in everybody's house. Okay, and then the computers got mobile, and you got laptops, and then they had pads, and you got iPhones. Okay, Jeff, we get to iPhones. Right, because I still have a flip phone. I'm that guy. It's the same kind of flip phone I've had since the 90s. Right, Jeff?
You got that Razor flip phone, right?
Yeah. Well, the one I got isn't a Razor, but it's it's
like that
modern of Anyways, so you get to the iPhone, and now in your hand, right? You have the scrying mirror that often in our memes and things like this that we have talking about. Okay, now Jeff, you got a smartphone?
Yep.
Do you have to unlock it with your thumbprint?
I purposely do not, but yes, that
is a thing now.
That feature is there.
That is a thing.
They push that like crazy.
Okay, but the thing is like
they do that on your tablets, everything.
When I was growing up, you would see this in spy movies. They do the retina scan, and the biometric scan, but that was government stuff, or there was going to be a robbery. We're talking like high end stuff. This is iPhone in everybody's hand. Okay, Jeff, how likely are you to have a pet without a chip in it?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Jeff. Yeah. Let's be real with it, Jeff. And I'm not trying to bash on anybody here, but let's think about how over time we've accepted that which was not acceptable when I was growing up. There was no way, Jeff, we were going to put a computer chip inside an animal. Now, Jeff, some states won't let you have an animal without that chip. And if you get caught without that chip, they're going to take it away from you.
They'll kill the pet.
And if you go to the vet for anything, if it, and let's say you're not a big fan of shots, you're like me, and you try to keep them away from that needle that looks like a serpent's tongue as much as possible. Something goes wrong, Jeff, and you get to the moment where it's like either you pray and you hope, or you take them to the vet. But if you take them to the vet, what's one of the first things they're going to ask you?
Got the rabies shot.
Okay, that's true. But one of the other things they're going to ask you, if you lost a pet, what are they going to ask you?
Oh,
Did
well,
you
for the
chip it?
chip.
Is it
Yeah.
chipped?
Yeah.
That's one of the first things. Your dog could be dying, and they're going to ask if you want to chip it. That's how insane we've gotten to. It's just like in the last 3 years, you could have somebody come in with head trauma. Well, did they get the COVID shot? What's that got to do with anything right now?
Nothing to do with it.
They've got a lawnmower blade in their neck right now, and you're asking me about their shot history. That's where we've gotten to. Jeff, this was not okay when I was growing up, but now this is the accepted norm. Okay, Jeff, I had a job. Let me see if I can figure this out. 2 years. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had a job working at not a nursing home facility, but kind of like a nursing home. It was one of those, what do they call that? Assisted living. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay. And so with assisted living, you have a lot of elderly, you have a lot of sicknesses and things like that. And I had to do the laundry, and you do not want to do laundry for a place like that unless you really want to do that. You see some things where you're like, that did not come out of a human. You know what I mean? We got the bed sheets and the clothing down there in the laundry, Jeff. And it was an eye opener for me, because I went down there in the first couple of days. The guy told me, he said, "Oh yeah, you'll know when it's flu shot season because you'll see lime green everywhere in the diapers and in the clothing." And I said, "Lime green?" He said, "Oh yeah, it'll look radioactive." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh yeah." And sure enough, yeah, doorbell cams. There's another one. We'll try to get through as many as I can just to paint the picture. Today is not the same as it was, and this is ever creeping. Okay, and we need to. Let's try not to get hyper-focused on any one of these, but overall, look at the overall picture, okay? Yeah. You have your phone in your hand. Not only does it have connections to everything, and sometimes you have to open it with your fingerprint, biometric scanning on your phone, Jeff, right? Yeah. But it has cameras. And now a lot of these iPhones, they don't even have one camera. I don't know how many phones are like this and what year that started, but I've seen it in the back where it's got the 3.
Have you seen the video where the iPhone, every 9 seconds, it's taking your picture?
Yes, I've seen the many things about how you have to. I've seen the videos of the girl. She was in the dark, and it was flashing. Oh yeah, and then you take that and then add that to deep fake technology, to where you can make you can take many still shots of somebody's face and make them say something they didn't say.
Brandon and I have been talking about this. You brought up deep fake. You and me, just right here.
Yeah, I know. We're putting our face out there, and
we have enough video content right now. I just want to warn the listeners.
It takes like 3 minutes, Jeff. You don't even have to. We've given them how many hours?
This is what's coming, guys. And so we're trying to teach right now. We're trying to warn. We're trying to prepare. That's what the fivefold ministry is there for, to get you prepared so that you can walk on your own. Knock the training wheels off, because there's coming a time in this type of technology where you're going to flip on D&G. You're going to flip on the Wade Remnant. You're going to flip on.
I sure hope
Dr.
that's
Michael
not what they
Lake.
do.
You're going to flip on somebody.
They're going to do it to people, for sure.
You're going to hear them saying something that is totally off of Scripture.
It's totally not what they would say.
It's going to look like them. It's going to sound like them. It's going to have their mannerisms.
They don't even have to put all that work into it if they don't want to. It all depends on their target and how they feel about it. You know, how many times Chadwick and I used to talk about this 3-4 years ago. We used to talk about, a friend is a friend until the police say that they found some things on your laptop that they didn't actually find. And the moment that hits the newspapers,
you're done.
How many of your friends that know you and love you say, "Well, I thought I knew the guy"? Chadwick and I used to talk about this, and we used to sit there and go, how easy is it going to be for people to think that we had that stuff on it when we absolutely did not? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to make sure everybody knows what I do or don't do. Yeah. I'm not worried about all that. Your point is that they can control these things, and that's one of the end lines here I wanted to get to. But okay, so at that job for that assisted living, I was there for about a week, and they said, okay, you can either write in the time you come in every day, and then you have to get your supervisor to
acknowledge it, but your supervisor doesn't come in until an hour after you're supposed to be here. So they're going to have to backdate it, and they're going to have to prove that you were here, or we can do biometric scanning. And Jeff, it was right, left hand.
Yeah.
It was left hand, not right hand. That was one of the things that I went, well, at least it's not the right hand, as if that made it any better. But I remember sitting there going, I absolutely hate this. I absolutely hate this. Okay, so now, Jeff, facial recognition technology.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, we go to Walmart, and I don't like Walmart, but you go to Walmart and even at Lowe's and stuff, I don't get out much, but I hate this, Jeff. I'll be there with my little ones and my wife, and I'm bagging up a couple things at the self-checkout, and I look over and I see my face on the screen.
Yep.
And all I'm thinking is facial recognition. It's getting a little square there. It's doing like this, and it's going, and I'm sitting there going, what do you need that for? You know what I mean? Okay.
I know a company.
All these things have reasons, but we're moving towards what?
I know a company that was using facial recognition as their way for people to clock in and out. And recently they actually had to stop because there were some legalities with it. So the technology is there. It's getting a little ahead of some of the laws that we already have in place, and they're having to actually circle back around to try to rewrite some of the laws to get around that, because it is a major violation of your privacy that we have here in the States. But you know what? None of that matters. None of those.
No.
I don't get political, guys, but you might as well throw out the Bill of Rights because they don't matter any.
Well, they've been, Jeff, the past few years has been showing that they want socialism and communism, and and you know, it's funny because they're just trying to follow, and they're trying to keep up with, and they're outright saying it now.
It's like we're
China and
writing
Russia.
a German book called My House.
You've got, no joke. You've got you've got BRICS. You've got BRICS.
Yeah.
You've got the Chinese and the Russians coming out saying that they're making an agreement. You got China making their own currency, right? And it's not necessarily a digital currency. It's a little bit different than crypto and bit and things like that. But they're making their own currency, and they're literally saying that they're trying to do this so that they have every step in the way, so that the U.S. dollar does not have the power that it does. So the U.S. is saying, we're trying to keep up with this. The U.S. has outright admitted to this. We're trying to keep up. Yeah. We're trying to keep our head above water because we have such amount of debt. Because what we've done is we have borrowed against the value of the dollar, which is extremely ignorant. And you know, the thing is, Jeff, China was supposedly the first one with paper currency. Did you know that? And so now they're the first one pushing for this next step. But they have this next step connected to social credit score.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Oh,
so now
I'm
Jeff,
you're bringing that up.
Jeff, because all these things tie together, Jeff. So look, the social credit score. You have accessibility to your funds based on how the government will agree to this. Now, okay, the U.S. has already come out saying that they're looking to do this. Have you seen the videos on this? They had the press conferences and they came out saying that they're planning on doing it on a Friday night, and they said that's because they want people to have time over the weekend to think these things through. And I said, no, you're trying to ruin the shalom of somebody's Shabbat. They have reasons for this, but they also don't want flip outs in the work environment and stuff like that. But it just so happens to hit Shabbat, and they love that. You know what I mean? But
you go to the store, Ian, to buy your family, your kids, some eggs, some milk. We're not even talking unclean foods or anything like that. You're trying to buy some staples, and you go up to the door to open the milk, and your facial recognition is already, it's got a camera right there. It identifies Jeff Brannon. You know what, Jeff Brannon, you drove your big 1-ton Chevy truck too much, and you've messed up on your carbon whatever. We're going to hold you off from buying milk, and the door won't open.
Yeah, the carbon footprint. You like that one that I sent you where it says card declined, please remove your tweets that go against store policy that go against your bank's policy is what they were saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so but as weird as this is, okay, now you had the facial recognition technology, which connects to this social credit system, because you have to be able to keep accountability and you have to be able to verify people who are who they say they are. Okay, now Jeff, you combine that with getting people to
Ian,
okay, now
before you get into that, hang on one second. I have such a problem. We have a credit system already in place by people that are trillions of dollars in debt. They're going to put a social credit system in place. And they're morally bankrupt.
Yeah. Who are they to say anything?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Okay, so who listening has not seen the videos of the hand scanners at stores? There are stores here in America. There are some hand scanners. Jeff, have you seen the videos of the gas stations that have no employees?
I'll do you one better than that. I've seen the videos of the new McDonald's that has 0 employees.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the ones in America though.
You're probably talking about America.
Yeah. Oh, really? They got a McDonald's one.
California right now. I think there's 2 of them. Yep.
Before we got to no employees, what was it? It was robots.
Yeah.
Jeff. Okay, now when we saw all the robots coming in and people were freaking out and everybody was like, yeah, no, they're not going to replace people.
Yeah, it's not going to take their job.
Right? It's not going to. Yeah, okay. But here's my point, Jeff. If you point at those robots, the little box with the scanner, and you say, Mark of the Beast, it sounds stupid. Okay, but Jeff, that was the step. That was the precursor before they got to the point where now no employees.
Yeah.
Jeff, they have these stores like you're talking about, like this. I've seen the videos of these stores. You cannot get into the building without being able to scan. Now, okay, so now you have to be a part of the system, which means
a robot has 0 empathy if your children are hungry and you need food.
Yeah, there's no chance for error on that.
They're a cashless society. I can't just go bless someone with some kind of financial assistance out of my front pocket. Everything is tracked, and if I've done too much, they cut me off.
Yeah.
If I give to the wrong cause, the wrong cause, it's cut off.
Yeah. Well, the Chinese social system moving forward, they literally outright say that it restricts and it's regulated by the government, and that's connected to the availability and accessibility based on social standings. They already have that. And we have the U.S. government literally saying that they're looking to mirror that. They're not even saying we're looking to mirror the early steps. Jeff, how did we get here? Okay, now, Jeff, I'm not claiming to know what all the special thingy, how that plays into play, okay? There's been a lot of people who said that was it.
No,
and there's some that said that's the precursor. Yeah, and ask me after when we're not recording. I got something to tell you, okay?
Okay.
About this that I'm not going to say on live camera, but I'm going to say, I will say this. It's not just a precursor. I'm not saying it's the thing. I'm saying it's the thing that's needed. It's not just a precursor means a step in between. I'm saying this is a mandatory precursor that without this step, you're not going to be able to have the next 2 steps. And the next 2 steps are going to be connected to the technology, the artificial intelligence, which is going to be connected to your facial recognition, your biometric scanning, but as well as also being able to detect certain activity, which is allowing you to be a member of this financial social banking system, which then allows you to participate in buying and selling. Okay.
We have a certain billionaire running around wanting to put chips in your head that can connect you instantly to the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got Elon Musk has got his Neuralink. You've got and you got the whole graphene thing. Have you looked into that? The graphene thing.
Yep. We did it.
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% convinced it's in the thing. Do you think it's in the thing? Do you think it is?
No, I think again, I think that personally, and I'm open to listen to what you're talking about. I think that was a precursor to getting into the technology with the injectable tattoos that Gates has been working on. That was our most popular show we did, and YouTube took it down.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, we did a 3-hour show in April of 2020 where we went through tons of these things before anything was up. And man, I'm going to tell you, probably about 80% of those things have already come to pass. And the conditioning is there. And listen, you can still find that if you go to our channel on Rumble. We somehow managed to find a copy of it and uploaded it to Rumble. It's still there. Interesting video, because man, it nails so many things that we have gone through that sounded like science fiction, Ian, when we were talking about it.
Oh, I know. All of this, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is, and I told you, like, I get weary of doing this topic. I get weary of doing this topic live.
You've talked about this for years.
I have. I've done discussions. I've done not speaking events, but I've been asked to answer in front of groups and things, and I've done videos and things, but I don't like to do videos on this type of topic very often because I feel like it's done so much and there's a lot of speculation. But I will say this, okay? There's dots that are connected on some things by most, but there's a lot of dots that are not connected altogether by most that should be. I'm seeing all of these things connect. Okay, so now, Jeff, and I bring up graphene not because I think graphene is the thing. I think graphene is actually a how do I put this? A representation of what they're actually wanting to put in the bodies, and they want you to think it's graphene. Okay, it's like the straw man. Okay, so graphene, back when they first were introducing it, for anybody who doesn't remember or who's not familiar, if you first look at the very first things when they were saying, hey, graphene might be the next thing, they were saying it's a form of carbon, but it's stronger than steel. It's like fireproof, and et cetera. And they talked about how it could be used for bulletproof things and things like that. And they go, but what it really can do is help regenerate cells and can be used to help fracture in joints. And they talk about how it's the strongest known substance to man that is two-dimensional, and how you can get that in the body. And so, Jeff, this goes more than a decade back. They were first introducing this graphene idea, and they're saying, we can put this in injectables, and it can fix things and restore the cells and things like this. And they said, it'll mess up with the DNA a little bit, but it's not going to go too much unless we send it to the DNA coding as an injectable, which is also possible. Okay, and they're saying we're very excited about what the future comes, right? And they're like, but this could regenerate cells, and they left it alone. Okay. Well, graphene,
they said they left it alone. But go ahead.
They acted like they left it alone. They like to do an announcement, and then they call back after they do a bunch of other stuff. And remember when we mentioned this? They'll say a little bit more, and then they come back and do other stuff. And, hey, we're doing man pig. Okay, and we're also doing graphene. Hey, we're doing man bear. Okay, now we're doing man bear pig. Okay, and they're all over the place, and nobody keeps up with it really. And I shouldn't say nobody, but okay. So here's the thing, Jeff. It's a dark graphene. Right, it's a lot like it looks a lot like when you're using a number 2 pencil, right? Graphene, not graphite, but graphene. Okay, Jeff, have you looked into the black goo? This is one of the things YouTube used to censor me on when I used to put playlists together and when I used to do Facebook videos on black. I called it the black goo phenomenon. This was back in 2015. Black goo phenomenon. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Now you have the phenomenon. You actually have individuals where they claim that they found it on trees and things like this. But I don't want to get into that. I'm not getting into the fringe speculative maybe nots. Without bringing up examples, Jeff. Without physically bringing up examples, just verbally. Music videos, TV shows, right? How often do we see the black goo being represented? Whether you're looking at Lady Gaga and her perfumes and all these twisted music video, which is another thing we should be able to see just in the evolution of music videos alone, how they went from showing a little skin to they do things now where it looks like stuff out of horror movies.
It's porn.
Jeff, no, it's worse than that, because at least that would have been tolerable for me back in the day. I would have been like, okay, they're showing a lot more than I would have thought, but okay, whatever. I would have been okay with that to some degree. But no, Jeff, I'm talking about the stuff that it straight up looks like, as a secular person, you're watching and you're going, no, this is Rob Zombie, twisted, satanic. This is beyond disturbing. Have you seen it? I mean, like I said, I don't want to bring up any of the clips for anybody, okay?
Yeah.
But they have a lot of black goo stuff, okay?
Yeah.
And J.A. Nicholson, I sent you that video from 7 years ago that he did on touching on a little bit of that. And that was one of the better videos I liked for that topic, for the black goo phenomenon. Anyways, back in 2015, typically that was connected to Nephilim DNA. That was usually the representation. Okay, so back in 2015, a lot of music videos that had the black goo, it had to do with birthing and new creation. So you would see this even in like your Matrix movies in the early 2000s. You would see this coming out of an egg shape with Lady Gaga. You would have, Rihanna did these things too, and it was always referring to fertility. But really, what they were getting at is new beginning, new birthing, new world order, right?
Right.
And you would have this black goo substance that would wash away. But as time progressed, it became more not just about new birthing, but also taking in. Okay, now we go back to the beginning. Was it not that which was taken in the body that began the corruption for the fall of mankind?
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, I'm not talking about we'll be eating something, but I'm just saying, before you say, no, it's not about actually, it's a branding, it's a marking. I mean, are we sure? Because it says the number of a man, and Jeff, if at all, the onion layer is unholy, 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 just like how we have holy, holy, holy is the Lamb, then we could be talking about using AI technology purposes to be able to infiltrate the body, the temple. This is the temple they're worried about. Everybody's talking about this third temple and they're looking for a building. I don't care about the building as much as what they're trying to do to the holy temple, the human body.
Yeah.
They want to corrupt your DNA. They want to make you in the image of. They need this beehive mindset. We even see that in Revelations talking about them being of one mind when it's talking about the 10 kings.
Yeah, that word image literally means replication.
Yeah. So if we connect to that, some kind of AI technology connection, just to consider that in there, along with DNA manipulation for receiving mark and locking stuff, you are now, if it's adding a third strand, a number of a man, whether or not it was extracted from Nimrod in the early Iraqi wars, like the generals claim. I'm not going to say one way or the other on that. I've seen the documentation on it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting, but I wasn't there. I mean, I was there, but I wasn't there for that. I wasn't there for the initial invasion. I was in Iraq and I went to those areas, but I wasn't there for them being like, this is Gilgamesh, aka Nimrod, and we're taking his DNA out of his bones now. I wasn't there for that. So I don't know if it happened.
Yeah.
But I do know that the AI, the technology, the ability to buy, sell, linking with the financial system, linking with a social credit system, linking with a new world order system, linking with the U.S. economy dropping and needing to keep up with Russia and China, and therefore having to come up with a solution that everybody can agree upon or to join in, to where you can get these 10 kings to where 3 can drop for the little one to pop up.
We didn't have, let me circle back a little bit. We didn't have, when I first started coming into the church, everybody's talking about Mark of the Beast. It's the, like you said, it's a barcode. It's your checking account number. It's your social security number. It's all these
which
things.
Everybody had. www. Do you remember that one? It's the World Wide Web, because the W is the Vav and the Vav is 6. So it's World Wide Web. We're all screwed.
All kinds of things. But we're at a place technology wise, situational wise, with the way that the economy is. Back then, if they cut your credit cards off and they cut your checking account, your checks away from you, okay, big deal. Everybody had cash. Most people back in the 60s and 70s were so worried about money. They were still hiding money under their mattress.
They
didn't
coffee
trust
cans
the
in
bank.
the backyard, and
Sure. I grew up with my dad telling my mom and dad telling me stories of a guy named Jack Jones that lived down on Pine Island on Caddo Lake, that when they sold his property, he is very wealthy, but supposedly he had mason jars, not like Freemason jars, but mason jars buried all in his property with just wads of cash. I'm like, man, we should have bought that property. That'd have been cool, But the idea is we've never lived in an era. Slowly things have been adding up. We're back in the late 40s, early 50s, we started developing the technology where we can obliterate ourselves. We can one day we can have a massive war and bring about some prophecies that are in Ezekiel that's going to happen to Israel. I mean, one day we could do these things. Now we're starting to get into areas that we are having the technology to where we can see the Antichrist and hear him, the beast. It can be alive, and be able to actually take away your ability to get food. And you can be a prepper and prep all you want, but we have drones now that will go out and find your crops and spray them with stuff that's going to make them where they won't grow. We just had an epidemic where chicken feed that you were feeding your chickens stopped them from laying eggs. I mean, my goodness. I mean, there's.
It's funny. I brought up Elon Musk earlier with the Neuralink, but and you've got this whole uploading the consciousness, and it's funny because they've talked about the uploading the consciousness, and this has even been in sci-fi movies for a couple decades now, 2-3 decades, right? We've got the movies of upload your consciousness and then put that in a clone body, and then they came out saying, okay, we can do clone bodies, but they don't last very long and stuff like that. And you had the freezing, right?
Yeah.
The cryogenics and stuff like that. Okay,
yeah,
but Jeff,
Futurama.
they're saying now, and this even goes back to General, what's his face, the Satanist general that LaVey used to take pictures with all the time. He was one of the earliest ones to come out saying we're now able to withdraw DNA as well as upload your consciousness. That is the plan, so that it really is you, not just a clone of you where it looks like you and stuff like that, but it's actually your DNA, and thus allowing you to live on forward. So this is the kind of mindset you have with Elon's Neuralink. You're connecting everybody together, but you're also looking for, yes, Aquino. Debbie has 2 cats, gets points for the day.
There we go. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, they can map the mind now and connect everybody together, and you can dot police, but they're not going to say that, but you can talk to each other without even having to touch your phone and all that kinds of crap. Yeah. And they're connecting it to the whole, you can live forever, as if that's actually living. But here's the thing, even Elon, have you seen what he's been saying about the AI?
Oh, he's scared to death of it.
Right. Well, I mean, part of it, I think, is propaganda and campaign, so that you follow his stuff and not the other, because he's coming up with a program called XAI and right. So, there's all kinds of things there. But at the end of the day, look at what he's saying. There was one clip I almost took today where he says, we have summoned the demon with AI. But here's the thing, Jeff. He keeps saying it's to the point now where the people think that the program is being controlled by the programmer, and it's not. Now, when I kept saying technology with DNA, and I talked about the black goo and how that's a reference to the DNA for fallen entities being interjected from this little horn character that they want to have everybody in the image of. Okay, if this AI is connected to not just the image of the beast and things like that, but it's actually the driving force into making it happen. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to paint. I'm trying to get the details in there for anybody who, when I say technology, they're thinking cyborg machines, and I don't think it's as obvious as a 1980s movie. I think it looks very much like it already does today.
Are you postulating that this graphene is something that they've put in as a way for you to accept something from being put inside of your body that will later produce this third strand of DNA? Is that where we're going?
I'm saying with what's being and what will be injected will be part of what activates, what will connect. I believe there's 2 more steps, and I have reasons as to why I believe that, and I don't want to get into all the details, but as it seems to me at the moment, there's 2 more steps, and that this first point,
we're already getting used to, some people may not know, if you don't have people that have had these ailments, people with severe diabetes, they now have things that they're super excited about, that they implant in them, and it automatically checks their insulin levels.
I knew a guy at work.
They do an app where it releases whatever they need into their body.
Oh, that's such a good example, because that freaked me out too, Jeff. I was working at the as a machinist in Ohio, and I looked over, and the guy had his iPhone next to his arm.
Absolutely,
And I looked over and I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm checking my blood pressure and stuff." And I said, "With your phone?" And he goes, "Well, I've got a thing in there." And I said, "Oh, of course you do." And he was one of like 2 guys that who did this. The rest of us I was working with Amish. Okay, so the rest of them weren't going to go anywhere near that needle that looks like a snake tongue. Okay, but there was a few secular guys in there, and he was one of two that was all about this whole number. And yeah, he was doing exactly what he said, and it releases from within. So we already have
part of the video that we did back in April of 2020. We talked about the technology that they already possess, that they're fine tuning, is that they will have something inside of you that will be monitoring your chemical makeup and everything. They will detect that you're having a cold before you ever even get symptoms. It will automatically, the Internet of Things will call the pharmacy, talk to your doctor, get you a prescription available, and it's all electronic, and it sends it back to your body with a permission to manufacture whatever they need inside of your body, and it releases.
Right. And here's the thing, Jeff, is like, the more you look at technology,
that's so cool. It's gonna be great. Hey, you don't have to go to the doctor anymore. You don't have to do all this stuff anymore. Whatever's going on, no. Bam, you're fixed. There you go.
Yeah, it's already in there. It's already in there. It's already, but and see, that's the thing that makes me think that it should be more obvious, but people are going to think that that's not possible. Okay, but when you look at actually technology just for what we already have, like your iPhones and stuff like that, there's more to that thing. It's not just battery and microchip. You understand what I'm saying, Jeff? They use stones the same way New Ages try to use stones, but they're just better at it. They use silicon. Jeff, they use elements of the world, and they use frequencies, and it taps into an energy. And there's an influence with that energy. Okay, now that's outside the body. I'm more concerned about when it enters into the body.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at. So when people are asking me what my views are on Daniel 2 and 7 to 12 and Revelations 13 and 13 to basically 18. And I find it very interesting. It does have the reference of the pharmakia in there, and it doesn't have it as a point of the mark, but it has that mentioned in there, which But anyways, that's as much as I want to get into without giving more details of how it looks to me.
That may need to be a show that we do on Rumble, where we can just not have to talk so much code. And
I don't have there's certain dots, Jeff. I've been shown things that I don't fully comprehend. Okay. So there's things that I don't want to say because I don't fully have words.
Yeah.
I just know that there's
but
more
listen,
connecting than what I had thought.
And I want to pull this back for the audience, guys. You need to be listening to the Holy Spirit, because the Bible says that He will lead and guide us into a few things that are true. But it says all truth, right? It says all truth, and God is still speaking to us today. I saw someone here a while back that said that had a video says that God's not talking to you. Man, listen, if God's not talking to you, then I think you're spiritually dead, and you need to get born again, because my God is seeking a relationship with us. He is seeking to have a kingdom of priests that He can minister personally with and to. So, man, and through. Hallelujah. Amen.
Yeah, to and with and through.
Yeah. That's a sermon that'll preach right there. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, listen, this is as in the days of Noah, so shall it be with the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Yeah. How dark was it? I mean, because we've seen that picture. That was one of the reasons I wrote my book, The Nephilim, A Giant Walk Through History. I wanted to be able to paint that picture, not just do a teaching on it, but have that. Ian, when I read a book, man, I've got a movie playing in my mind, right? I've got like the score going on in the background. I've got sound effects and things. So when I'm reading a book, man, I'm watching a movie on the inside. I wanted people to be able to kind of put and listen, all the pieces aren't there, but a lot of the pieces are there. Think of how dark it was in those days. Think about how corrupt things were. Think about back then, The plants were corrupted. The animals were corrupted. Mankind was corrupted. The knowledge was corrupted. The technology was corrupted. Everything. And the Bible says that man's heart was upon evil all the time. We haven't even talked about that. What about today? We don't even know what a woman is. We're trying to normalize pedophilia. We're trying to make, oh, that's normal. No, that's not normal. That's demonic. That's depraved. Oh my gosh. I mean, we are so wrapped up in everything being evil. Everything is about the lust of the eye. It's what I want to do. It's the same thing that Hasatan, Hillel, Enlil, whatever you want to call him. That's the same thing. He wanted to make the world in his own image. We are doing that ourselves. We're being little gods. I don't care what the big God says. I'm going to do it my way. It's the Frank Sinatra doctrine. And man, we're getting way out of there, and we're getting to a place. We're getting to a place where that line has been drawn, and I believe that the Father says that there's a level of that iniquity that's going to be there. Yeah. And then when that level hits, it's on.
Yeah. Well, in order, look, if you accept that, as it seems to say in Revelation, that if you receive the mark in doing with the word, like, okay, we're ending it, so I want to get back into it. But when it says worship the beast, I think a lot of these people have the wrong picture in their head. When I say technology and I'm talking about transhumanism, I think they're
bowing down and
right. But how often?
Oh,
how often?
I mean,
right. Yeah. But you and I have talked about this before, and if we do a video and we say recognizing idols or something like that, and we say, you could worship something without realizing it, nobody's going to be surprised by that. But then all of a sudden you say, well, to receive the mark, you might not recognize it as worship of the beast because your heart deceives itself, and you can tell yourself, I'm doing it for the past 3 years. The name has been health and safety, Jeff. Yeah. It's been health and safety. Now, in order for health to turn into peace and I don't want to get too much into it, but in order for health to turn into peace and safety, it has to be about unifying. Yeah. Unification is not going to be about this for health. It's going to be how this connects to an ability for banking.
Yeah.
And it has to be
control. It's all control. It's all control, brother.
Yeah, it is.
That's what the mark of the beast is about, is control.
Yeah, well, they want that hive mindset, which, like I said, you can
nobody goes out and worships. I want to be controlled. You don't put on Indeed when you're trying to hire an employee. We're going to control your life. Who's answering that, right?
Yeah.
It's coming, man.
I know. I'm just, all I'm saying is like people, they some of the questions they ask listeners a lot is, can you take the mark accidentally? Yeah, I think you can take the mark not recognizing it as the mark, but if you're a believer, it's going to stick out. You're going to know. Yeah. You're not gonna accidentally take that thing. You have to be in lockstep with love of the world. Yeah. You have to, and I mean, we could do a whole thing on that if we want to at some point about what is blasphemy of the Holy Spirit.
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Hey, Karen, you don't have to say on in here, but I want to hear from you later and see how long you're going to be around in Tennessee. That's not too far away. But all right. I don't want to get all worked up, dude. I'll just keep going because there's other things to go into. But overall, I just want to paint the picture. When I say transhumanism, I'm not talking cyborg. I'm talking technology being able to insert something into your body to where you don't necessarily look cyborg.
Yeah.
But there's controlling factors now. Okay. And you may not even recognize it for what it is.
We watched the new season of Picard. I'm a Star Trek guy, right?
Okay.
And the latest spoiler alert, guys.
Is that the one with the Ewoks?
No, gosh.
I heard that's the better one though, the one with the swords that light up.
Oh, anyway, so this third season with Picard, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know, guys, you can fast forward the video like a minute, but it deals with this whole transhumanism thing about uploading the consciousness in an android construct that looks exactly human. You can cut the body, it bleeds, all of it, and it's just preparing our minds. It's preparing our minds for what is to come. to accept these things, and they're great. And listen, I've been a Star Trek fan for years. Patrick Stewart, he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. He's in his upper 90s. He's about to believe in God. I'm just being for real. We need to understand when we see these things, it is preparing society to go lockstep in with whatever's going on. Trust the government. Trust what they're saying. Trust the CDC. Trust everybody. This is all good for you.
And that's another thing, Jeff. When you look at things like Beast, I want to just throw it out there for people to stop thinking person and start thinking entity,
System.
not just spiritual entity, but system, right?
Yeah.
I want you to start thinking WHO, WEF. I want you to start thinking about those type of systems in place when it's talking about kings and kingdoms. Don't just think China and Russia and Euro and NATO, but start thinking your Bill Gates and your Elon Musk. Just consider the possibilities.
Listen,
all I'm saying.
How much power? Okay, who has more power, the president of Mexico or Bill Gates? Who has more power? Look at.
You didn't like that?
What I didn't even hear it, brother.
You said Mexico or Bill Gates. I said Turkey.
Oh, there you go.
They got that mountain of gold, bro. I'm telling you. Okay, all right.
Yeah, but you see what I'm talking about. That's a true kingdom. That's true power.
Yeah.
And these guys are playing the puppet that we have here in that's supposedly our leader. Can't even complete a sentence. And we've got issues with all of that kind of stuff, and they are building that familiarity. Trust the government. Hey, we've got your best interest at heart. But they say that with their mouths, but their actions are 180 degrees outside of that. Bill Gates talks about that. He is trying to do population control through vaccines.
Yeah, he literally said that. Yeah.
He said that, he's testing it out in Africa.
I know.
That's on the record.
I did videos on it in 2017, Jeff, and nobody cared to hear it then.
Nobody wants to hear. Yeah, go to your baseball game. Go get your red snow cone with red 40 in it. Have fun. Just life is normal. The days of Noah, they were marrying, they were given in marriage until the flood came and took them all away. Sodom and Gomorrah, they were doing their thing, and then brimstone, hail, fire and brimstone comes down and destroys them. We're business as usual.
So here's the thing, Jeff. They like to have big, grand imagery.
Yeah.
As it seems to me. So it shocks the system, it desensitizes the system, and then they come out with the actual thing. And it's like an iPhone. Again, I'm not bashing the iPhone. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad tonight. I'm saying in my mind, this is how they do it. They show you images of music TV of slithering with black goo and stuff, and you're like, okay, whatever. But if I saw that in real life, I'd have nothing to do with it. But then they give you the iPhone, but it's connected. But you don't see. Do you see what I'm saying?
Two big competing phone things. We've got an iPhone and we've got I have an Android. iPhone, their symbol is the forbidden fruit being taken a bite out of. Apple. What is the Android symbol of? It's going to this human cyborg Android. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the Republicans and the Democrats. It's two wings of the same bird. They're going the same direction. I agree, brother.
Yeah. All right. I'll let it go. I just wanted to get that in there. Is that we need to start looking at where things are at now.
I really
considering
like
how things are now because it's going to be visually, as it seems to me, it's going to be a lot visually sublime. But in reality, like when you look at this, and even the RFID chip thing now, that's been out for so long now that's not even a big deal anymore. That's a little grain rice thing. Okay, but I mean, in comparison to the DNA of a fallen entity being injected into to change your DNA strands into 3 strands. That's
Well, hey,
huge. But because
didn't
you
even
don't
get
turn
in-
into this black glue thing.
We didn't even get into this with the injections that they're trying to do. Listen, we have we have seen where some of this AI stuff is opening itself up and being controlled by demon spirits. I'll just say it. And what is going to go on when you're injecting
Chat GPT?
What are you going to get when you are injecting receivers into your body that opens yourselves up to be in some forms, I don't know percentage wise, but controlled and directed by demonic spirits.
Yeah.
Now that boy, Jeff's crazy. He's flown off the coop. He's on the cereal aisle. He's a cornflake. He's a Fruit Loop. Whatever. It's there. It's there, man. It is there. And it is coming to a forked tongue, a snake tooth, going to scratch your body here in a little bit, and you're going to have a decision to make.
Yeah, it's getting interesting, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's getting interesting. I'm just trying to block the fantasy imagery and look at modern.
Yeah.
When it says speaking image, you know.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about like the. I used to look at the stone and the cornerstone of Mecca, of the box.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be touched by the Imam Mahdi, their Messiah, and it's supposed to be given the ability to speak. And I used to look at that and go, that's interesting. And then when you looked at in Revelations 13, it talks about causing them, and then if they don't worship the beast, that they get killed. And I used to look back at the Sphinx, right? And they would ask a question. And if you didn't answer it correctly, it would kill you. And you've got but these are all pointing to what is coming, but we're not. It's going to be a lot more subtle. It's going to be like it is already. You see what I'm saying? It's already in the terms of what's already been accepted.
I know you're trying to close out the show, but look, I want to talk a little bit more about that mixing of the on those toes, those 10 toes in Daniel.
Yeah. Okay.
The mixing of the iron and the clay.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's with the clay obviously represents humanity?
Yeah.
Are you thinking the AI is this the iron, maybe with this metal of graphite?
Well, you have AI, you have your graphene type of things, which I'm still thinking the graphene's more of a representation of what's actually. Yeah, it's to look like graphene.
Right.
But it's the black goo. It's not graphene. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
And so you got that mixing, but it's not wanting to stay mixed, but it is mingling. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. Well, you've got multiple onion layers. With this iron, you're also having simply just the representation of the Roman Empire in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, there's many layers to look at this, but it would be silly, in my opinion, to focus on one and dismiss the others.
Yeah. And guys, listen, a lot of this stuff is speculation. We're trying to, again, I'm so glad you brought that up. People are tired of hearing about it. Well, you know what? When you finally start seeking God and asking Him to help reveal this stuff to you, then we can quit talking about it. So get to a place where you're trying to find out from Yah what's going on, because these things are serious. These things are coming to us. And Paul talks about in the last days, there's going to come scoffers. Are you one of those? Peter talks about there's going to be people that are crying, oh, where's the promise of his coming? Are you one of those? What camp are you in? We need to make sure that we're in the right place, that we're in the camp, we're following the cloud. We've not built our tent, and we're very excited about where we're at. Wow, y'all put us in this great place, but then the cloud starts moving and we're like, I'm staying here. You're going to fry. That's one of the protections of the cloud in the desert, right? So we need to get to a place, guys, where you're seeking Yah about these things, because these are serious. I'm telling you. Listen, okay, let me just say this. I am not convinced that King Charles is the Antichrist. Let's just say that.
No.
However, he has a lot of things checking off the list. If
there are many antichrists.
There are many antichrists.
Right,
I agree with that. But
right.
I'm just throwing out a scenario. If he is the Antichrist, he just got coronated as king today.
No.
So, and I'm not saying he is. I'm really not. I want to be real clear. But if he is, man, what does that mean? If it's the guy in Turkey, what does that mean, right? If Elon Musk is the forerunner or the prophet or the beast or something, whatever.
Yeah. If it's somebody who's already in a position of authority and the power and the ability to, because it very well could be somebody who hasn't stepped unseen, that it's not even a name or face that outside of behind closed doors is understood. But then you have this peace and safety declaration. It went from health and safety to peace and safety. A couple more steps are in place where they're getting ready, and then they have the person who's ready to roll that out as the solution.
Yeah,
replacing the 3 before it, right? And then all of a sudden, boom.
We've seen types and shadows of the Antichrist all through history. Adolf Hitler, beautiful picture. Germany was drowning in inflation, which we are about to be doing ourselves. And all of a sudden, he remembers from some of his Jewish upbringing that this whole thing of the Jubilee year, we'll just come wipe out all the debts. They went from 1,500% inflation to zero overnight. Bada bing. He was a hero. Germany went. I mean, they were starving to death. You get your kids where they're not eating, and all of a sudden you've got someone putting a chicken in every pot. People are excited about that, and we're looking at going into the very same scenario. We don't learn from history. We're repeating right now. We're repeating right now the mistakes that were made back in 2008 that caused the housing crash. We're doing it again. Yeah. I think by design. We are doing everything we can to crash this economy. We're doing. Listen, I
told you what I was given when I asked what 2020 was, right? No. I told you that.
No.
Yeah, in 2020, I asked how am I supposed to view this before it came out, because I heard that it was going to, and the response I kept getting emphatically through multiple confirmations was Joseph and the famine in Egypt, 7 good years, 7 bad years.
I
wasn't.
We talked about that. Yeah,
and I wasn't told. The Father didn't say, and thus, Ian, there will be 14 years starting from 2020. He didn't say that.
Right.
All I did was ask, how am I to perceive this situation? And that's the portion of scripture I was given. So how you want to take that and run with it, you can, but I can't help but wonder about the half and half.
Yeah.
The half, and if we've been in the half good right now, my goodness.
Oh yeah.
These are the good news, Jeff.
Yeah. I see Kava's comment. Again, I'm not saying Charles is the Antichrist. I'm just saying he's a type. He's got a lot of boxes checked. And my mind is just thinking, okay, if this guy's got all these boxes checked, if he actually is the Antichrist, he was just crowned today.
Right.
He's already the highest Freemason in the world. All these things. So just fascinating things to think about, and to think about where we are in history, and it could be closer than we think. We could be 3.5, 7 years, in a place where we're, I told Brenda the other night, a lot of us like to think of something like we're in the movies, and we're going to be that one couple that survived everything. There's going to be a lot of people die. Here's your rah-rah speech, right? Jesus said that they're going to come after you. They're going to kill you. They're going to run you from town to town. Woohoo! Be encouraged that I've overcome the world. Hallelujah. There's your tip. That's the pep talk Yeshua gave. Don't get mad at me.
Here's the thing, Jeff. Not everybody's going to receive the same revelations. Not everybody's going to have the same gifts or the same roles within the body. So I'm not going to point any fingers. We don't want anybody to feel discouraged if they don't feel like they have the answers and stuff. Jeff and I started this video out saying, out of this whole series, this is the one where
speculation.
We can point out some facts and then
Some
we can
patterns.
speculate in some
Yep.
patterns.
Yeah.
We can point out some facts. We can point out some patterns. We can point out where we seem to see it in Scripture, and then speculate from there. And that's the best. And that's one of the reasons why I get very, very, hesitant about doing this type of video. But at the end of the day, it's not about identifying. It's about making sure you're where you're supposed to be. It's not about identifying who is the Antichrist, who's the false prophet, who the first beast is, who's the second beast. It's not about recognizing the mark and things like that. There's a pretty solid chance that when it comes down to it, you'll know if and at that point, the problem won't be recognizing, but rather, will you comply? Will you cross the line? I mean, this is Jacob and Esau. Give me food so that I don't die. I'll give up my birthright. You have a spiritual inheritance. You have a birthright.
Yeah.
But you have to love the Father above all, and you have to trust in the hope of that spiritual inheritance more so than your physical body.
He that seeks his own life shall lose it. Who said that? That's Yeshua. If you seek, and we have got to love what the Word has to say. We have to love that relationship we have with Him and the Father more than anything else.
Yeah.
He said, "You shall have no other gods before me."
He said, "Your enemies will be of your own household."
Oh.
You keep going. You keep going, Jeff.
No,
you bring up the good ones. I'll bring up the bad ones. Come on.
Yeah,
come on,
I'm just saying.
You bring up the good ones. You bring up the God is love, and I'll say things like,
He's a jealous God.
Will he find faith when he returns? That's what Yeshua said. Oh, I'll return, but will I find faith? We can do this all day. Jeff.
We have so entertained ourselves. I'm gonna do I told Miranda this other day. I want to do a message on the gospel according to most. We have the gospel according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I want to do a gospel according to most, because listen, that's the gospel that we live by today. No one wants to hear any of the hard stuff. And there were several times in the Gospels where Yeshua said the hard stuff to shake some of the rotten fruit off the tree. Man, I'm just saying, it's rough, brother. It's a straight and narrow walk. He said few will find it. He didn't say many are going to find it. He said few will find it. And I pray that I'm going to find it, that I'm going to be able to endure to the end. I don't want to live this life that I'm living all the way up, and then at the last minute, like, nope, can't do it.
Oh, Jeff, you know how many times, like, one of the things that really puts me in perspective before I do a video, especially when I'm doing like these studies by myself. And sometimes I'll be late coming in, and it'll be a few more minutes than I would have been because I'm sitting there praying, that I don't say something I shouldn't say and things like that, and that he uses me and stuff like that. But I go into the video, and I almost always go into it with, I could have the revelations, I could have the knowledge, I could have the wisdom, I could have half of that which I think I have.
Yeah.
Right. Because in reality, it's not going to be as much as I think. Right. It could be like temper, whatever. Anyways, point being, could have all those things, and you could get to the end of the race and then just quit right before the finish line.
Yeah.
And Jeff, I've done that in life with other things before. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to.
Don't wag your finger at people that Listen, we are all ALL capable of that. If Stephen, Acts chapter 6, if Stephen, one of the first of the 7 deacons, a man that was full of the Holy Spirit, full of wisdom, right? If he can fall, he was listening to Yeshua with his own ears. Acts chapter 6 was not like 30 or 40 years away. That was just right after the resurrection. He was listening to the very apostles that were rubbing shoulders with Yeshua. And if he could fall, what makes us think that we couldn't fall? Listen, every day, we need to be searching out our own soul salvation with fear and trembling to see if we be of the faith. Because, listen, Enlil, Hillel, Hasatan, Satan, he was created perfect with wisdom and perfect in beauty. And he fell. He opened his eyes at creation, and there was Jehovah, created him. And he fell. He saw the Father in his glory. He saw Jehovah it create the world. He saw him stretch out the line for the foundation of the earth. If he can fall.
What's it saying, Jude? I gave all diligence to write to you the common salvation.
Oh, brother, that hits me every time. That hits this guy. Oh, let me bring it up. Hang on.
To contend for the faith which was once delivered to the saints, right? And then you go forward and it says, I'll put you in remembrance that even though you knew this once, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterwards destroyed them that believe not, and the angels which kept not their first estate, right? You pulled them out of Egypt, but then destroyed them that believe not. Angels which kept not their first estate, but left their habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah gave themselves over, right? So how much more so? How much more so, Jeff?
I just love this very first part. Beloved,
well, I'm just saying, if he's willing to do that to
I
those,
gave all diligence to write to you about the common salvation, but it was needful for me to write unto you. Unto who? Unto the believers. And exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith. That's not talking about we're going out preaching the faith. We're not going out and converting people. This is talking about that we should contend for the faith that has been delivered to us, that we don't fall, because we have so many illustrations. And he just goes off and goes through illustration after illustration after illustration of people that had amazing revelation. They had or angelic beings, and they fell. I'll tell you, the book of Jude is amazing. I'm sorry, brother.
Scriptures say that the judgment starts
at the house of Yah.
I'm just saying, man. All right, I was this video the kind of vibe you were hoping for? Was this the kind of the discussion you wanted to talk about? You said you wanted to get into the weird and the wacky.
Brother, I think we did. This is good. This is this is the notes that I had. This is good.
So here's my question for you, Jeff, before I let you go, and before I get out of here. Is there anything else in this series that you want to do, or are we done with the series? Look, he has to think about it now. Oh, geez, I done did it.
I think what Yah has given us for this series is good.
There's nothing else. You don't feel like there's something? Okay, you sure?
You got something?
No, dude. I've been ready to move on to some other stuff, but
no. I think when I think of the days of Noah and the little snippet sermons that I've heard, the little snippet series, I don't think that I've heard what we've done. To me, what we've done in this series is kind of like what we did with Exodus. We brought out a lot of different perspectives and different directions. Some were familiar, some were not. And that I wanted a bigger picture, and I think that's what you wanted as well.
No, I think because a lot of people get into the detailed things, and no, we got to do some details, but yeah, it was a bigger picture stuff. And I don't know if anybody who watched the whole series has been able to put it together on how I brought up programmable matter in water when we did water and fire.
Oh, brother,
and I talked about how the body's full of water. And then tonight I was trying to end on the note of programmable matter being injected to change the DNA. So programmable, there's some connections there that I'm going to leave open for anybody to try to connect on their own there. But there's that graphene replacement, the black goo, programmable matter. Consider that in mind, and then rethink about what I talked about with the programmable matter of water.
Yeah.
Okay.
And water has memory. Man, that blew my mind.
Jeff, you could
we
affect
still
it
talk
and
about
change,
that.
you can molecularly change it with your thoughts and your emotions. That's what blows my mind. To change it by speech, I'm not as surprised, because the Father created with speech, and we're made in the image, so our speech has power. Okay, we see the effects of positive and negative speech, but just to have a bad feeling or a good feeling, and that resonates into the makeup of that. Okay. Anyway, all right, I'm done. I just wanted to see if there was anything. I wanted to let the listener know whether or not there was going to be more to come or not. And if not, then I've got other stuff I want to get into, and I got some things that you and I should talk about off camera. Got some ideas and things. But okay, so you're good then. You're good with the As in the Days of Noah.
And listen, thank you, Ian, for doing this series. Thank you for having me be a part of it. I'm very grateful. I just want to say publicly, I'm so grateful that y'all brought you into my life. I just love you. I love what you're doing for y'all. And guys, listen, if you can pray about supporting D&G 144. I'm telling you that he is doing. I know you're getting uncomfortable. I see that. I don't even care. Listen, Yah is moving through Ian and doing a mighty thing and doing a mighty work. You need to pray about either praying for them on a consistent basis, or pray about doing some support. Listen, this is not this takes work, and the Bible says that a workman is worthy of his wage. So Ian, you didn't want me to say that. You didn't even know I was going to say that, but listen, it needs to be said. So that's all I've got to say. I'm gonna pop myself off. Shalom, guys. Good to see you.
Okay, that sounds about right. All right, so we're gonna leave it on this note. But anybody who has watched this video but hasn't seen the ones before, I strongly encourage you to consider. I would suggest that you would look at the first 3 videos before this one. This one was a fun one. I hope that it maybe connects some dots and things and gets the mind working in some ways and to perceive some things differently for some people. But overall, out of the 4 videos, the other ones, they have a lot more meat, whereas this one is not that this wasn't meat, but it's more about preparing and mentally looking forward and things of that nature. So as to say, if you see this one and you didn't see the other ones, in my opinion, you're missing out. So I would go back and look. And if you're looking for the playlist, I got a playlist of just the 4. You can find it on Way Remnant as well. And then of course under YouTube, if you look on Take on the World, you can find it in the live videos. But that's good enough for me tonight. We already went later than I wanted to, and I'm tired. So I hope you all enjoyed. May Yah bless you with this video, with whatever it is that you received from this video. May He use it through you and for you in your walk. May He keep you. May He look upon you with favor, with His countenance, and give you His shalom. We hope to hear or to have you join us again here at D&G 144 at the Draw Night of the Creator show at Take on the World TV. I've got some things in the making for the future. And of course, we also have our Abram and 1 Samuel study to get back to. Okay, so that is all for tonight. I hope to see you again. Shalom, shalom.
Yeah. He's alive. It's really just that simple, man. Draw nigh to God, man. Yeah. Draw nigh to God, He will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, He will draw nigh unto you.